March, Tuesday, March 11th. We proceed with a roll call. Mr. Burnett, City Attorney. Here. City Manager, Mr. Taylor. Here. Commissioner Bridges.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Here.
Commissioner Velez.
Here.
Commissioner Lumpkins.
Here.
Commissioner Brooks.
Here.
Commissioner McCray.
Here.
Please be reminded to turn off or mute all cell phones and or electronic devices. I want to ask Reverend Jenny Wilson to lead us in prayer, which will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Scotty Brooks.
Let us pray. Make us to know your ways, O Lord. Teach us your paths. Lead us in truth and teach us. Loving God, these words from Psalm 25 begin our work together this night. For truly, Lord, we desire to do the hard work of living and serving in this community with your guidance and in your peace. Open our ears and our hearts to listen well to one another. Give us wise and truthful words to share. Help us to know what matters to you, Lord, and make it matter to us here in this meeting and in our life together. Teach us your ways, O Lord, and lead us. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we will consider adjustment to and approval of tonight's agenda. Are there any adjustments? We will adjourn the end for a closed session. That's the, okay. Don't need a motion. To provide the highest standards of behavior and transparency in governance, the Board of Commissioners has approved a code of ethics to establish guidelines for ethical standards for board members and to provide guidance in determining appropriate conduct among those board members shall avoid impropriety in exercising their official duties and conduct the affairs of the board openly and publicly. If any board member knows of a conflict of interest or appearance of a conflict, please state so at this time. There are no conflicts. Let the record note no conflicts of interest. At this time, we have a proclamation honoring the woman of the city of Oxford in Granville County. This is Women's History Month. Proclamation will be read by Mr. McCray.
Mayor Pro Tem, if you don't mind joining me, please, ma'am.
You're a soldier, you can handle anything. Nothing big.
Honoring the women of the city of Oxford and Granville County for Women's History Month, March 2025. Whereas the month of March is recognized across the United States as Women's History Month, a time to honor and celebrate the countless contributions women have made to our communities, our state, and our nation. And whereas women have played an integral part in shaping the history of Granville County, the city of Oxford, and its municipalities through their leadership, resilience, and unwavering commitment to progress in the fields such as education, healthcare, business, government, science, arts, and social justice. And whereas women in Granville County continue to break barriers, serve as role models, and inspire future generations, ensuring that principles of equality, equity, inclusion, and empowerment remain at the forefront of our communities. And whereas we acknowledge the sacrifices and achievements of women throughout history, from the trailblazers who paved the way for equal rights to the dedicated women today who lead with courage and determination, strengthening the fabric of our society. And whereas we proudly recognize and support the women of the city of Oxford and Granville County who serve in public office, education, law enforcement, healthcare, business, and every sector, contributing to the vitality and success of our communities. And whereas the observance of Women's History Month provides an opportunity to reflect on past struggles and accomplishments while committing to a future of continued progress towards gender equality and opportunity for all. Now, therefore, I, Guillermo Nurse, Mayor of the City of Oxford, along with the Board of Commissioners, do hereby proclaim March 2025 as Women's History Month in Oxford, North Carolina, and throughout Granville County. We encourage all residents, businesses, and organizations to recognize and honor and celebrate the achievements of women past, present, and future, and to support efforts that promote the empowerment and advancement of women in all aspects of life. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the seal of the city of Oxford to be affixed this 11th day of May of March 2025. And for being, again, a trailblazer and for setting an example. Thank you, ma'am, so much.
I accept this on behalf of every woman.
Absolutely.
You're a trailblazer. Thank you. Yeah, you go get it.
Okay, we proceed to public comments at this time. As you notice, we have our clock set to 3 minutes. As long as it's working, we have a backup here just in case. Please guide yourself. If by chance you have something that does not allow you to express yourself completely, please raise your hand and we'll give you time to accommodate for that. I hope I said the right thing. At this time, she lined up. Okay. Okay. We'll start with Ernestine Parker from 407 Prospect Avenue, Oxford, North Carolina. And their topic is on safe parking and driving situation on Prospect Avenue. Turn the mic around.
Turn it back around, babe.
My name is Ernestine Parker, and I live at 407 Prospect Avenue, Oxford. And I'm here to speak on my concern with parking and driving safety.
Take it out and let her hold it. Same soft voice.
I said my name is Ernestine Parker, and I live at 407 Prospect Avenue, Oxford. And I'm here as a concerned citizen at my residence pertaining to the unsafe parking and driving situation on Prospect Avenue. Um, there is I live right in front of the nursing home. And the problem with parking is the employees and visitors, mostly employees, park all the way down the street, right across in front of my house, my neighbors' houses. And the reason why I said mostly employees, because I've noticed, I'm there every day, and their cars are there all day. And and they also park on Jones Street sometimes and block my driveway. Just the other day, I had to call the nursing home and ask them to move their car and not block my driveway. And this street it's not a 3-lane street, and there is a problem, unsafe, with all these cars parked. And when cars are coming, there's not enough space for cars to pass. It becomes a 1-lane traffic, and it's not safe. And when I back out of my driveway, I have to. It's just unsafe because I'm afraid that I'm gonna back into the car that's parked right at the corner, right across from my driveway. So there, I find myself backing straight across the street into the nursing home driveway in order to go left or right. And I was just concerned that you all could look into this situation uh, and try to help us. Uh, yes, they have 2 parking lots, so I think they have sufficient space, you know. And sometimes across there, right from my driveway, the city did paint the curving, the space of a car that they're not supposed to park, but they don't pay that into mind. And that's where it becomes a problem for me trying to get out safe because I'm afraid I'm going to hit the car. And two, I didn't put that on the list, but while I'm standing, I'm going to speak about the speed on that street too. They, I don't think we have a speed limit sign on Prospect, and sometimes they come down the street driving 40 miles an hour, and it's just unsafe, you know, for people, even the people at the nursing home. Uh, Sometimes they come out in a wheelchair. They might come out to the edge of the street without the staff knowing it. Okay. I think my 3 minutes is up, my daughter said. So I appreciate commissioners listening to my concern, and I hope that you can help us. I've lived where I lived for 40 years, and I've been going through this all this time. Thank you.
Next, we have Mrs. Johanna H. Ward, I believe it says. Parking problems.
Good evening. Miss Parker and I are about the same problem on Prospect Avenue, right in front of Universal. They park right in, I have to back out of my driveway. They're right in front of it. And the driveways are not too large, and when you have to have room, and I never told anybody, you can't park on the street. And I just asked them, if you mind backing up some so I have room to get out the driveway. And I've get all kinds of smart remarks, and yeah, I don't own the street. I know that, but at least you are parking, blocking my driveway, my mailbox, and that's all. I asked if they would do something so we will be able to have a safe street without cars everywhere. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Moore.
We call on Cassie Pulaski, 129 West Front Street, Oxford, North Carolina. Topic: citizen feedback engagement.
My name is Cassie Plisky, and I live at 129 West Front Street. I want to thank you all for your willingness to hold public office and by your willingness to face criticism that comes along with your service. Over the past year, I've made a point of either attending or streaming most commissioners' meetings. As I've attempted to become more involved, I've noticed what seems to be a disinterest from some city staff and elected officials in listening to and meaningfully engaging with the citizens of Oxford. Notable changes since the last mayoral election include the limiting of all public comments, regardless of the number of speakers, to 3 minutes, increased removal of citizens from meetings, and as of last month, an effort to even further restrict public feedback by attempting to limit the number of commenters on any given topic. As a reminder, each of you, with the exception of Commissioner Brooks, was elected by the citizens of Oxford to be our voice and to represent our interests. Therefore, I would hope that listening to, informing, and supporting us would be your top priority. Citizen input through things like the comprehensive plan and public comment should guide your decisions. As a partial owner of 305 Williamsboro Street, which will soon be Sanctum, it is upsetting to hear that the newest member of the board favors corporate growth over sustainable local growth. I want Oxford to grow. I want Sanctum and other small businesses to be successful, but I can assure you Oxford is not short on good biscuits. After listening to the agenda meeting last week, I know that there's talk of codifying procedures to fill vacancies, along with extending the mayor's term. I'd implore you to hold special elections in the case of future board vacancies, because while I've often agreed with Mr. Brooks's comments as a citizen at previous meetings, I would not vote for a commissioner who prioritizes corporate growth over small businesses owned by Oxford citizens. As for the mayor's term, I strongly believe that that should be voted on by the public as well. As what's to stop the board from shifting the term as they please based on the mayor's views? I want to remind you that the citizens of Oxford voted for Mayor Nurse to have a 2-year term. Therefore, any extension must be applied after his term is over or the next election. It is the duty of the public to challenge and hold elected officials accountable. My goal today is to respectively share observations that have caused me concern. I want to emphasize that criticizing and questioning a public servant is not an attack on their person. Sorry, I'm nervous. And only 3 minutes. If anything I've said today doesn't align with your vision or goals as a city or elected official, I would encourage you to reflect on how your words, actions, or inactions may have led me to feel that the citizens of Oxford aren't being fully represented or supported or heard by those in this chamber.
Thank you, Mrs. Pulaski. Pulaski, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Mr. Jason Duncan, 1217 Enon Road, Oxford. And he's here in Down Home Power Hut Grab All campaign.
Good evening, Mayor Nurse, Commissioners. How y'all doing? My name is Jason Duncan. I'm a member and acting organizer for Down Home, North Carolina, here in Granville County. And Down Home is a member-led organization created to expand multiracial working class power in rural North Carolina. And I'm here tonight, 1, to make sure we stay connected as our past encounters have done great things for the people here in the city of Oxford. 2, to bring light to the fact that the website does need to be updated. And then 3, and most importantly, to the initiation of our Power Up Grab All issue campaign this year. This campaign will focus on procuring federal funds that will provide solar panels and a recreation area for the Grab All community. We have researched several grants that will aid us in getting these things done. We started communication around this and have scheduled community canvases to get and also pique interest in this initiative. This was just an introduction to you all, as we don't want to move without you guys knowing what we have going on, or without you guys being aware of our actions. We at Down Home are just asking that you help in any way to offer to push it across the finish line. Thank you for your time and attention, and we look forward to being in the community with you all again. And if you want to contact me, my email is jason@downhomenc.org, or you can contact me by phone at 252-915-1375. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Ms. Anna Hausman, 306 Broad Street. Public comment, engineering plans.
Anna Hausman, 306 Broad Street. After our last meeting, I emailed the board asking them to consider a change from the 3-minute limit to public comment. Seth Lumpkins responded to me, and he's pretty consistent about it, but I didn't hear otherwise. I'm here today to say I'd like to, again, push that we consider going back to the full 5 minutes and really taking discretion when we're limiting public comment, specifically when we have so many people in our community with disabilities that are impacted by time limits, pressure, public speaking. It is really difficult to ensure that we're hearing our people, the people of our community completely. I might also recommend going old school with an egg timer, because the constant beeping and trying to figure out, it comes across, I know it's not meant to be, you're trying to hold people to a time limit, but it comes across like you're not paying attention to the person who's speaking and trying to get in under the 3 minutes. Regarding engineering, I'm curious why we are not having a public hearing regarding whether or not to approve an ordinance that would allow the city manager to have the ability to sign off final improvements on subdivision plots. Questions that I have that I'd love to have answered prior to voting on this would be, given that the city manager isn't a licensed engineer, why are we moving to this? What are the current barriers that our current city engineer, Amy, is coming up against that is making it so that this is a potential time lag? Have we previously this board has spoken about Amy and that she's a one-person kind of show for the most part, and that we're looking for help to boost the engineering department. I'm curious, what steps did the city take to find help in the engineering department to support this one engineer for our entire city? Seems like a big, tall order. What steps have been taken to get her support and her recommendation? What did she have to say about that? I don't agree with creating ordinances as a means to fix inefficiencies created by poor staffing or understaffing or whatever the case may be. It seems that we're foregoing procedure for speed, particularly at a time when the Oxford community is crying out for developments to slow down. And this seems like a speed up. And maybe those two things are not necessarily related as to why this is coming up now, but without public hearing, we're kind of all left wondering, why now is this happening on the heels of people coming and speaking about slowing down subdivisions instead of speeding up approvals for subdivisions? As someone going through construction right now, it concerns me greatly that we have potentially like the final say in approval not coming from an engineer themselves. I went down a whole Reddit rabbit hole with engineers talking about what they would and wouldn't sign off on and put their licenses at stake for. And I've just 3 minutes or however long I've been up here now, not enough time for me to get all of those questions answered. So thank you.
Thank you very much. James, Mr. McCoy, 49 Kingsbury.
Good afternoon. I'm Eddie McCoy, 408 Kingsbury Street. I heard through the grapevine that the engineer fired her help. That's why she don't have enough help. I said, I heard it now. It's not law. It's just street talk. Okay? That's why she don't have enough help. I'm here to talk about taxes. We pay, city people, we pay 2 taxes. We pay county and city taxes. Now, we are being burdened with these taxes. Now, you know how these TV people, you throw you off. I'm gonna keep you on right on the down low. We pay 2 taxes. Okay, we pay 2 taxes. And Revlon got a house full of people. How many people here right now can name 5 people that work at Revlon? Right quick, bang, 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 bang. You can't name 1. Okay, when Revlon let out, where do the cars go? Everybody know where the cars go north, go south into Virginia. Okay. That's what's killing us. Now, you know what happened down in the southern part of the county? The same thing happened down in the southern part of the county. Everybody go Durham, Raleigh, and go Greensboro and go that way. So if they go that way, and then, you know, you read the paper, we got more daggone. I ain't never seen a minute sewer treatment plant people since I've been coming to the board. Everybody know about sewer treatment plants and know about water. You know why? What happened is, go to the county board. Everybody here live in the county, go to the county board and say, county commissioner, let me tell you one thing. The city need the help with the sewer treatment plant and the water. Stovall need help, and Creekmore and Butler. You read these papers and these people talk about water and sewer. They're in the wrong place. In the paper, the wrong place. The county need with people too. They will not come and let you know that we don't have enough people in this county to pay taxes. We got half of the people working in this county live outside. That's the problem. The county is not paying their share. I hope the county go up on taxes, and I hope the city go up on taxes. I'm gonna pay mine, but I bet you'll cry then. The county can go up on taxes, and you don't get a dime. The county, you don't get a dime, you don't save nothing, you accept it. You accept what the county do, and they don't give you no service or nothing. And you sit back and you come up here and raise hell with these people about what they can't do and this and that. That's your problem. The county don't subsidize nothing. That is the problem. And let me tell you one thing. We need people in this city, and we need people in the county to help us with these taxes. If you don't do it, Franklin County gonna take them, Durham County gonna take them, and maybe have taken them too. And you know what's gonna take them next, Franklin County. And you know what's gonna happen? We ain't gonna have no water, because they're gonna take the water allocation from us and give it to other people. And then you go, we ain't got no water, we ain't got no drinking water. Well, you know why we ain't got no drinking water? Because you let Franklin County and the rest of these counties take your allocation. Talk about that. That's what you need to do. Instead of coming down and talk about somebody, cut down there and say somebody in the city. We need as many as we can get.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. This is Grace Kennedy, 122 Pinecone Drive. This topic is general growth.
Good evening, Commissioners, City Manager, Mayor. I stand before you today with serious concerns about the future of our town. As you know, we're a small community, fewer than 10,000 residents. Recently, new developments have been approved in annexed areas, but I fear we are hurling into something that could hurt us in the long run. Last month, 409 acres, possibly 1,600 homes were approved. And this evening, another 527 acres, which could mean an estimated additional 1,200 homes. The Meadows, 300 homes with the potential of 750. Walmart, I don't even know, I couldn't find it. That's a lot of homes, roughly 3,300 homes. What is the rush? We haven't even come close to building in those developments that are already have infrastructure in place. Is the house market booming? I haven't seen it. Is the economy such that we can bankroll these new developments? I don't think so. Let's talk about water and sewer. Our current, I'm talking. Our current water and sewer systems are already stretched and currently cannot handle future demand. Additional water towers are going to need to be built and possibly lower water pressure for those of us that are already here. We can't continue to approve new developments without addressing infrastructure issues. Who's going to be paying for all these new sewer improvements? Many of our residents are still reeling from the 30% property tax increase last year. And now we're going to improve new developments and pile on to already burdened citizens. The reality is the decisions being made today won't necessarily affect us in this room tonight, but they will affect the residents who are still here after we're all gone. The board members, current and past, who approved that tax increase won't be in office, but the weight of your decisions are going to affect your children, my children, our grandchildren. So I ask you to reconsider, are we serving the people who actively live here, who pay the taxes and contribute to our community? Or are we serving outside interests looking to make a quick profit? Reasonable growth is vital. I'm not saying it isn't. But are we ready and have we made the provisions to make sure our town is prepared to handle it? The decisions made today will shape our town's future for decades to come. Please, let's make sure we're doing what's best for all people. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Kennedy. This time we'll move into public hearing. First item of business tonight is the Prairie Farm development consists of 527 acres from AR 40 to RMU CD. This density level is set at 2.35 per acre. We have the developer like to do a presentation first.
There's a presentation on that flash drive I gave you, Scott.
There we go. Perfect. All right. Good evening. My name is Cindy Schwarzkopf with Kimley Horn. I'm here this evening on behalf of BRD Land and Development to discuss the Prairie Farm rezoning. Next slide, please. Just wanted to give a quick overview of what we'll be talking about this evening. Sharing with you some maps, talking about our conceptual plan, anticipated phasing for the project, briefly talk about development details, our open space, buffers, talk about planned and proposed amenities for the site, our access points and connectivity to future areas, the traffic impact analysis, as well as a neighborhood meeting summary. And we'll also be detailing some of the things that we've done in the past 6 weeks or so since the planning commission meeting. Next slide. Just to orient everyone, the site is located between Horner Siding Road, Perry Road, and then Salem Road to the south. It is approximately, next slide please, about 527 plus or minus acres. Our request this evening is to seek rezoning to the residential mixed use conditional district from the current AR 40 district in Granville County. The goal of this community really is to provide a new residential neighborhood that provides a variety of different sized residential units, while at the same time really embracing the environmental landscape of this community. Coon Creek crosses through the neighborhood. We're doing what we can to limit crossings in that. We're really looking to preserve lots and lots of open space in the area so that this can really be a great neighborhood that Oxford can be proud of. Next slide. The plan is for the development to be built in 3 different phases. Phase 1 shown in the green, southeast of Coon Creek, phase 2 kind of northwest of Coon Creek, and then phase 3 is a future commercial area. Exact phasing definitely will depend on market demand, but this is kind of the general thought process at the moment of how the development would go. And of course, a development of this size would take years and years to develop out. We're looking somewhere between 7-8 years from the time that we start into full design until finishing construction of it. I did want to touch a little bit on the commercial portion of the project that's shown in red. We've heard throughout our neighborhood meeting and then during discussions with the Planning Commission over the past 6 weeks and with neighbors that there's some concern over the commercial area. And the developer of this project has no plans to develop the commercial area. We were going ahead to getting it set up to have it entitled so that it could be residential mixed use and allow for future commercial. But we are here tonight wanting to talk with the board and to kind of get a feel for what you would like to see. Are there certain conditions you would like to put on this development? Or is there something, would you like this area for park space? Do you want this developer to dedicate it to the city of Oxford to be used for future development? We are open to any ideas from the board. The developer is not going to be developing the commercial. We were just getting set up for a neighborhood scale residential that perhaps in the future, once these rooftops are built, a developer might want to come in and build a grocery store or might want to come in and build some neighborhood retail. Or if you tell us tonight, hey, we really think this would be an amazing area for a park and we would like the developer to dedicate it to it, our client is willing to do that as well. So just wanted to start engaging in that conversation. Next slide, please. Talking about the unit mix, we're looking at a mixture of different size lots for single family, and we're also looking at townhomes. However, again, following up on the conversations that we've had with Planning Commission and others in the past 6 weeks, the developer has even agreed to limit further the number of townhome lots in this neighborhood. So the pod of townhomes, and I'm just going to move over here real quickly so I can help everyone understand. This section of townhomes right here east of Coon Creek, we're envisioning that is going to be limited significantly, and that we would not be adding additional rooftops or additional lots in that area. That would be transitioned into green space. Could it be flat areas for a soccer field? Could it be additional ball fields? Things like that for the neighborhood. So the total number of units will be coming down from the 1244. We're thinking townhomes maybe in the 100 to 150 range completely, but just wanted to let you know that in talking with our developer, he believes that would be an appropriate mix for this neighborhood. So actually the dwelling units per acre would come in underneath that 2.46 and probably more in about a 2 units per acre range, which the residential mixed use allows up to 14 units per acre. So this comes in significantly less than that. Next slide, please. We also wanted to make sure, since our developer will be selling this land to builders in the future, we wanted to make sure that Oxford was going to be protected. So we went ahead and put in some development design standards that any builder that chooses to build in this area is going to have to adhere to. So we're looking at things, making sure that there'll be a variety of housing types, whether it's 1 or 2 stories, variety of elevations, variety of color palettes, making sure that you can't have the same house right next to each other. You can't have the same color house right next to each other. So we have a visual variety throughout. Making sure that there are adequate parking spaces, so that 2 parking spaces per lot, whether it's a 1-car garage and a parking pad or 2-car garage, making sure we're using architectural style shingles so that you have a quality designed development. Next slide, please. Again, talking about the open space and buffers. For the parcel of this size, we're required to have 5% of open space, which is about 26 acres. At this point, we are at least 132 acres of open space, which is 25%. And if we take those townhome units out, that's even going to go up higher. So again, as we get into our final design, the exact acreage will be determined, but we far exceed what Oxford's minimum requirement is. And then again, for recreation open space, the requirement is 13.1 acres. We way exceed that as well, and that will be fleshed out during final design to find out exactly how we're going to program it, where those locations will be. And then also for buffers, there'll be a 20-foot type C buffer around the perimeter of the property outside of the lots, so that we're making sure to provide a nice buffer for our neighborhood as well as the adjacent properties for anything that might be building later or have additional, currently have residential properties up against our neighborhood. Next slide, please. And just talking about amenities, there's lots of ideas for this neighborhood. And a neighborhood of this size and this type would definitely include a pool and a clubhouse, pocket parks, tot lots, walking trails. There's so many great areas within this neighborhood along the creek to do walking trails. want to have dog parks, mail kiosks, benches, landscape areas, bicycle parking, things like that. The next few slides show representative photos of the types of amenities that could be expected in this neighborhood. So go to the next slide, please. Another example of the benches, dog parks, the walking trail that I was talking about adjacent to the stream, the creek going through the neighborhood. Next slide. Again, some of the things that we like to see, you know, really working with the environment, making sure we're having nice outdoor areas for people to congregate, for neighbors to get together. So benches and picnic tables around the tot lot or the park, some outdoor areas with a fire pit, some gathering areas, benches, enhanced landscaping, things to just really beautify the neighborhood. Next slide. Also important to talk about access and connectivity. We are showing one access point from the neighborhood to Horner Siding Road. We're showing 4 access points along Perry Road, which will be improved as part of this project. 1 access point along Salem Road. And then also it's really important to make sure that we're providing connectivity to the neighbors to the right whenever that property develops, so there can be connectivity between the neighborhoods. Next slide, please. And then also I have our traffic engineer here if there's any specific questions related to the TIA, but just wanted to make sure that everything that you all understand that we have coordinated for months with the city and NCDOT on the scope of what the TIA would be. The TIA always takes into account traffic from all of the other developments that are being considered within Oxford. The TIA recommendations provide mitigation that our developer will be required to do as part of this project. The study was reviewed and approved by NCDOT. So if there's any further questions about that, Kevin is here and he'll be happy to answer any questions for that. Next slide, please. And then I mentioned we had a neighborhood meeting in July. We had 10 people that called in addition to our design team and city staff. Lots of questions, great dialogue were asked during the conversation. And it was related to the commercial property, which we addressed tonight, talking about paving of Perry Road, a little bit about the water and sewer, what types of units were going to be proposed, the types of amenities, where are we having the access points, sewer lines, things like that. So we feel like we've addressed all of those comments during that meeting. And then again, with the Planning Commission and this presentation for tonight. Next slide. And then in January, we presented to the Planning Commission, received a unanimous recommendation to move forward. And topics that were brought up at that meeting included, again, questions related to traffic and the required improvements, discussions about the school district and what types of coordination there is between Oxford and Granville County for schools, and notification of future subdivisions coming in, a little discussion about the product type and lot mix. Again, that is why we're also making some adjustments to the number of townhomes, timing and development of the expected build out of the neighborhood. And then the last item was discussion about the Henderson-Oxford Airport. And on that note, the next slide, I'm going to ask Brock to come up and kind of talk about things that have taken place in like the last 6 weeks or so related to that.
Thank you, Cindy. So my name is Brock Pfister. I'm also with Kimley Horn at 300 South Main Street in Holly Springs. You know, as Cindy mentioned, we've been looking at this for a long time, and the Planning Commission meeting and the Planning Board meeting, there was concerns that were brought up about the airline and the airport that was adjacent to the property. We took those seriously, and following those meetings, we had several conversations with the FAA, with NCDOT and their aviation group, as well as some internal partners at Kimley Horn that focus in aviation, really trying to make sure that we understood the process and what impacts we would have with a development like this on the airline, and then also trying to understand what limitations or restrictions we might have from the development side. So through that process, these images were actually sent to us by the engineer of the airport. We evaluated through some online portals and things, working with the FAA, what the thresholds would be to actually have to go through some notifications and some studies. We are within an area that would require us to submit a notice to propose construction. And so what that means is we're going to basically send the elevations of our property and the proposed uses that we're recommending to the FAA. Those uses and what we're recommending are going to get analyzed against the proposed uses of the airport. And then the FAA will basically send us, as well as the airport, their findings. And talking to the FAA and talking to NCDOT, at this point, in specifically looking at the elevations of the runway relative to our site, there was, I'll say, minimal concern from a safety perspective, but there was a concern, and the airport brought this up last time, of notification. So things that we need to do on our end, on the development side, to make sure that the public at large and the people moving in this neighborhood are aware of what's going on around it, specifically the adjacency to this airport. I do want to mention one thing that was important that was brought up. There was a concern of how close we were in relation to what is called the runway protection zone, the RPZ. We are not within that RPZ. We are outside of that. That area is restricted by the FAA just for any construction. And so we're outside of that. So the FAA isn't regulating what we can build. They are regulating the height of what we can build. And so we're looking at those things, and we're just monitoring and making sure that what we're building is within line that the FAA is going to allow. And then the other component of that is on the notification side, the people moving into the development, we want to make sure that they are aware of what's going on around it, like I said. And so there are things we can do, such as deed restrictions. There's notes we can put on a final plat. There's marketing information that we'll submit to the individual buyers as they're coming in. So there's a lot of things that we're planning on doing that will be included in this development to make people aware of what's going on. Happy to answer any questions if y'all got them.
You're an engineer?
What's that?
You're an engineer?
I am, yes.
So will you be working closely with the city engineer as this project goes forward?
Yes, sir. I'm the engineer of record on this project, so I'll be doing all the civil engineering work through the also public infrastructure to the development of the lots themselves.
Okay, and I think that you were able to answer questions relative to the traffic impact.
I can.
That was done.
Yeah, I can. Our traffic engineers here, if there's a specific question.
Okay. All right.
But I will add, can we flip to one more slide real quick before I bring him up? So I wanted to kind of finish out the whole presentation. The last thing I do want to kind of, make sure we are saying well is a property of this size, a development of this size is not something that's going to be built overnight. A property of this size with as many lots as we're looking is a long process that's going to take anywhere. Cindy mentioned this, but it can go anywhere from 5 to 10 years. And so I think that's a really important thing. We said 5 to 8, but that's usually after everything is entitled and the designs are done. That alone can take approximately a full year for a single phase, and then those phases will continue to go through the city and the engineering process. So I want to make sure we're highlighting that because I know that was a major concern, and so I want to make sure that's known. But our traffic engineers, if you have specific questions to TIA, and then I can answer anything else related as well.
Yeah, my question would be when you were looking, or when y'all were looking at the traffic impact analysis, what was the major problems that you face in looking at the development, and how did you address them?
In terms of the results of the analysis itself, is that what you're asking? Obviously, given how our site's located, we expect most of the traffic's going to come up and down Salem Road. So we know that that's going to send a lot of traffic towards the loop. And one thing we've looked at as part of our study and then ultimately NCDOT's review is making a number of improvements along Salem Road and particularly at Oxford Loop to help address those impacts. So we're expecting traffic signal installation, turn lanes at the intersection of Salem and Oxford Loop. NCDOT is looking for us to build turn lanes and a traffic signal also at Landish Road, so right there near Oxford Prep, because that's another place where when you have the impacts of a development coupled with the impacts of school traffic and how that loads, that's something that needs to be addressed. So we expect a number of turn lanes at our own site driveways just to address our traffic, but then along the corridor, making sure that as our traffic follows the network out of town that we're addressing those impacts. So that's the approach that we take to that.
I had a
Go ahead.
I had a question regarding the water flow. because a project of this size, it looks like you're going to affect a lot of natural water flow. So what consideration has been given to surrounding neighborhoods, whether they're downhill from this or would be downhill once you do your alterations to the lane?
Would you mind flipping to one of the sheets that have the picture of it, just so that we can have a visual reference while we're talking? Back a couple, just one of the renderings showing that's good. So as it stands today, the way the property, I think Cindy mentioned, is it's kind of bifurcated by the creek running down the middle of it. So as it stands, basically the topography of the site drops down towards that central creek, and everything runs southwest from there. So when it rains, all of the water from this area basically drops down into that creek or ravine and then flows southwest. When you develop any site, we are required by the state to meet certain thresholds from an environmental standpoint, as well as an attenuation or basically slowing of the water down. Because when you add roofs and it doesn't absorb into the ground, the water moves faster. And so as you'll notice, there's little pockets of blue kind of shown around the site adjacent to the creek. The intent for those right now, while we haven't done the full design to size those, we have identified general locations of where we anticipate needing to have ponds put in. And so those can be handled a couple different ways. We could do full wet ponds that you see just as a natural stock pond or something that a livestock pond. That will also act as a means to treat any kind of sediment coming off of the property before it gets to the creek. And that's regulated by the state as well. And then you also have the environmental runoff that they're looking for certain thresholds of nutrients to be met. So you're managing a bunch of different things with the intent to not impact downstream properties with the increased rate of runoff for this with the development. So just by general rules, whatever the flow is today is what we're required to meet from a rate standpoint when we're done developing. Did you have another part of that question? I'm trying to remember if there was something else.
Second part is, if once it's developed, it's built, and all of a sudden you realize that you may have miscalculated and it has an effect, after it's built. Sometimes just because it's finished doesn't mean it's done. So for a citizen or the citizens that live around these communities, what would be your approach to resolving that?
I would generally, it's a great question. We try not to make mistakes. That's first. The general process is that it's going to go through multitude of steps and checks to make sure that doesn't happen. Our design process, our internal QC process, the cities are reviewing it as well. And in some ways, the state will look at the stormwater as well to make sure certain thresholds are met as you're going through your grading permits. They're looking at your ponds. And so there's probably 3 to 4, at least from a municipality and ourselves perspective, that are looking at those designs to make sure that those thresholds are being met. I mean, generally speaking, most of these ponds, even in the way they're designed, have factors of safety built into them. So even if there are slight calculation errors or areas that may be miscalculated, which again, we selfishly do a pretty good job trying to make sure that doesn't happen. But if it does, there are also factors of safety in the ponds to mitigate that. As far as what would be done if a calculation was mistaken and there was something that there were additional flow coming off site, it would be up to the developer and the engineer to rectify the situation. I can't speak to exactly how we would do that. I mean, it just depends on where we're at in the process. We wouldn't, if their home's built, we'd have to get creative and figure out other areas to expand pond footprints and things like that. But if a mistake was made, it would be on the engineering development team to rectify it.
Thank you.
I know that you indicated that the third phase of this development is possibly commercial, but y'all are not going to make that decision. Y'all are looking for ideas from the city about what to do with that, the third phase. And possibilities are parks or walkways or, open space.
Sure.
I think most people would want it to be like a park or open space or,
something recreational. Are you gonna take into consideration folks that are gonna buy homes over there? About what they might want for that third phase?
Yes and no. I mean, I think generally right now, we recognize that there's a market demand for additional housing variety in this area. And so when we're working through these projects, the development team is usually doing market analysis to understand types of homes, the density of homes, which, as Cindy mentioned, is part of the process in which we're looking at actually reducing the townhome density to some degree. One, we've heard staff, we've heard the city. Two, we think that a development like this can manage with less of those townhomes. So that's something we're pursuing. On the side of looking at what they may want or may need, I think our goal is that they would be kind of embedded in the city of Oxford and part of the community. And so I guess our hope in that would be that they would align generally with the same people that would be doing that. Now from the, if you want to speak to it,
Yeah,
you can.
she's getting up. From the reason that we kind of left it open-ended for that parcel is we are wanting it to be any permitted use that's within the residential mixed use category within your UDO, which provides a huge variety of things that could be there. It could be a park. It could be a grocery store. It could be a neighborhood retail. It could not be a drive-through though. So we understand that, and that is not anything that could ever be considered in that area. But really in the phasing and the life cycle of these types of developments, we have to get the rooftops there, and then the market studies come to figure out what needs to be there. So we just really wanted to set it up so that it would give the biggest variety for future use. Or if it's determined that the city of Oxford really wants this property for a future park or site for a use within the city, our developer is willing to dedicate the land to the city as well. So it's best case scenario, we're leaving it flexible for future. We're getting it zoned so that whatever comes, it's ready to go. It's teed up for it.
How far is this land gonna be from the residential area?
There is a railroad corridor up, let's see if I can kind of show you. What we're talking about, this is the commercial portion right here. Here's Salem, and then like the railroad corridor there. So these would be these units here. Then there's 20-foot perimeter around. Oh, wait a minute.
If you can go back the other way. Phasing map so you can see the red area.
Thank you.
Should be a couple more there. Right there. Thank you.
So here's the phase 3. Salem Road, the railroad corridor. We have some homes here, but there's at least 20 feet from the parcel line to that area, which is the type C buffer that's required around the perimeter of the property.
Mayor Pro Tem, you got a question?
I'm thinking.
While the Mayor Pro Tem is thinking, anyone here has a question?
HOA.
Yes, ma'am. There will definitely be an HOA governing the neighborhood, and they'll also be required for the maintenance of the ponds and the parks that are within the neighborhood, things like that.
So you don't think, say, an Oxford Park would have an impact on the homeowners and the HOA? That wouldn't.
Well, the parks that we are proposing within
Would be
within the neighborhood. So it would be the requirements of Perry Farm to take care of those. If the phase 3, if that property is ended up being dedicated to the city for a future park, then it would be on the city to take care of that and program that. But anything that's within the confines of this neighborhood would be maintained, programmed, taken care of by the HOA that oversees the neighborhood. If we had a swimming pool, it would be taken care of, or a tot lot, or a ball field, things like that.
Go ahead.
Mr.
Yes,
McCray.
ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. You mentioned the RMUs and I guess the categories that fall within that's going to be endorsed. Can you just expound on maybe a couple of?
Sure. I have your permitted use table with me here, and within the RMU district, it allows a variety of residential uses, but then there's also different categories related to, office and service that could be there. You could have a bank, you could have a medical clinic, you could have some professional service type things like a tax office or things like that. Maybe perhaps a beauty salon. What is not allowed there would be like an ABC store or an adult establishment, any drive-throughs, things like that. In my vision, if this does develop as commercial, it's neighborhood serving. So you would like the neighbors to be able to walk down here and go to the grocery store or go to a restaurant, things like that. That's kind of my vision of what would happen if it develops that way.
Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah, someone from the audience expressed some concerns about all the development that's happening and whether or not there is sufficient water and sewer to support all this. Do you share that concern?
I'm going to let Brock talk on that one.
So we've been working with the city on this one quite a bit. Through the annexation process, which will follow zoning, is when that process will come through and basically allocate sewer. So water, I don't think we had much concern. I think on the sewer, it's mostly just based on allocation. And so as we go through the annexation, we were working with the city to talk about developers agreements or things that we can do to recognize recognizing that this development is going to happen over a long period of time, basically not require or not ask for all of the allocation at one time. So a project this size, we are willing and working with the developer in the city to make sure that we're not overburdening the city for all of the allocation at one time, if that makes sense. And I think, your city manager can speak to that if needed, but I think that's we're generally aligned in those conversations.
Any other question?
I guess this is more for the traffic engineer.
Yes, sir.
I know that in Oxford, for many years, there's been a concern, the Oxford Loop, the blinker light that's on the Oxford Loop.
Okay.
And from my understanding, you guys supposed to do a lot of work on the Oxford Loop at that traffic signal, like maybe modifying it, maybe turn it into an actual traffic light.
At Salem Road, yes, sir.
Yes, and
Yes, sir.
which also going to include more turning lanes and I think 350 feet of storage buffer back. So you guys are pretty much going above and beyond to address safety concerns when it comes to the Oxford Loop and Salem Road.
I certainly think, yes, sir, that the having an actual traffic signal would certainly be a benefit. And not to take all the credit for our projects, what NCDOT and your city staff has done a good job is requiring improvements from other projects. So some of the improvements at this intersection are committed improvements as part of other developments in the area. So with all traffic studies, we include our traffic, but also traffic from area developments and also the improvements that those developments will be accounting for. So I think this project, other projects in the area are going to combine for significant improvements along the corridors that I do think will help address some potential safety concerns.
Yeah, and I think sometimes folks don't quite understand that sometimes when developments come in or different projects, they address certain concerns that might have been issues within the city for a long time.
Sure.
Because I know even with that traffic signal, there's kind of been a tug of war between the municipality and the state. And from my understanding, when a development comes in and they put money towards those intersections, then that's what kind of pushes the state to want to put some effort into
Yes, sir.
Building up that area.
Yes, sir. That's exactly right. It does help that these improvements would be funded by the developer. So since it's not someone who's seeking funds from the state or the city, privately funded improvements are often well received as long
Yeah.
as NCDOT and the city have confirmed that they're sufficient. So you're exactly right.
Yeah, because a lot of times the issues be little municipalities like Oxford are kind of competing against Raleigh or Durham when it comes to state funds to be put towards certain intersections that have become dangerous. Nevertheless, what it actually would take for something to be done without funds being an issue is what we had done, what has actually happened on 158 that caused that light to be put up by the BP, which was a fatal accident between the tractor trailer and the car.
Yes, sir.
So I definitely applaud you guys taking extra initiatives, because I'm looking at maybe 4 or 5 different improvements that y'all would do on Salem, not to include the Oxford Loop and Perry Farms. I mean, you guys are pretty much going to be building up the roads all,
yes, sir,
pretty much surrounding the whole area.
Yes, sir.
And the Oxford Loop, I mean, it's a good ways from that subdivision. And you have some developers, they come in and they don't look that far down the road.
Sure.
So that was just the only thing that I had to address. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Questions?
Thank you.
Public session is now open. Public hearing is now open. We're going to start over on this side. Is anyone to my right who would like to come forward and speak? Anyone to the middle, come forward and speak. Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. Good evening. My name is Henry Moray. I live at 4098 Salem Road in the Graham Estates subdivision, and that's directly across Salem Road from the proposed Perry Farm development. So my main area of focus with this development has been that area of commercial that was proposed to go across the street from us, and I really appreciate Ms. Schwarzkopf's openness to removing that commercial component of the project. If she and her team would be willing to take that commercial option even off the table, with the support of the commissioners, of course, that would really go a long way toward my family's peace of mind regarding the potential development. We'd be much more comfortable from a kind of light noise perspective, but even also from a safety perspective, especially since my wife runs a youth riding stable at our home. If any activity across the street from us were to be people in their homes or in a well-managed park, or some combination thereof even, as opposed to commercial activities. So again, thank you to Ms. Schwarzkopf for her openness to removing that component. And if with the commissioner's support, if that could be committed to tonight, that would go a long way for my family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? Come forward.
No problem.
My name is Rod Heinz, 4191 Indian Trail, and good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak to you this evening. I come as an advocate for the airport. I do not represent the airport. I'll state facts, and any opinions that I state will be strictly my own. I've received no financial compensation and will not accept any donations for this testimony. My aviation experience includes flying corporate aircraft for Rosa Stores in the 80s, and then 35 years with the airlines, retiring from American Airlines a few years ago. I've had my pilot's license for over 50 years. The Henderson-Oxford Airport was built in 1971 in an uncongested area conveniently between Oxford and Henderson. The previous Oxford Airport was located behind Sherman and Body on 15, just up from Walmart. The new site allowed the airport to expand and serve the community with little negative impact on nearby residents. The airport continues to grow and improve its facilities as evidenced by Airport Manager Amanda Welsh at the January 15th Commissioners meeting. The proposed rezoning of an annexation of the Perry Farm would be impacted by the proximity of the two. The airport runway is a paved surface which aircraft may operate on in either direction. In the northeasterly direction, it would be called runway 6. In a southwesterly direction, it would be called runway 24. I will concentrate on runway 6 arrivals and runway 24 departures because these impact the Perry Farm the most. The first page, which I handed out, is a simplified version of page 2, which I'm not going to give you a quiz on that one, but a lot of numbers, but I'll simplify it for you. The first page shows, the page 2 is an instrument approach chart, which provides a pilot with both lateral and vertical guidance to the runway. In Oxford, the RNAV approach for runway 6 that we're looking at begins actually over Lake Devon. The pilot begins at 2,000 feet above ground level and begins to descend towards the airport, crossing right over Oxford, which is in the lower left-hand side of this page, continuing northeasterly. You can see the numbers 1, 2, and 3. Number 1 is the Perry Farm, number 2 is Hunt Landis, and number 3 is the Oxford Park community. On this approach, the aircraft can descend down to, the funeral home area there, a beam Oxford Park. The aircraft would be at approximately 675 feet above the ground, continuing down to 285 feet above the ground, right over the Perry Farm. At that point, they may continue to descend on that 3-degree angle, or as Miss Amanda Welch spoke about in January meeting, PAPI lights. PAPI lights are precision approach path indicator lights, which give pilots a visual guidance towards the runway. The PAPI lights have a slightly different angle, 3.25 degree angle, which accounts, we'll get into that on the next page as we continue on. But there's a slight difference in altitudes, but it's not really all that critical. Let's see. The Henderson Oxford Airport has an airport traffic pattern for both runway 6 and 24. An airport traffic pattern is a predetermined flight path that organizes aircraft movement during takeoffs and landings, similar to a roundabout, but in the sky. And that'll be on page 3 here. On page 3, you'll notice I've got 1,000. The airport traffic pattern, aircraft fly at 1,000 feet. And that's what's called the downwind leg. They continue straight ahead before they make a left-hand turn right over the Perry development. At that point, they make a 90-degree turn and start their descent on what is called the base leg. Continuing the descent, they'll come to another point to make a 90-degree turn to turn in towards the runway. That 285-foot point is marked right over the Perry Farm, as you can see, and there's another height above the ground, 365 feet. That's using the PAPI lights. There's a slight difference between the 3-degree glide angle and the 3.25-degree glide angle. But the main point is these aircraft are coming in low over the Perry Farm. Let's see. And then on the final page is a diagram that shows the airport traffic pattern for runway 24. aircraft taking off on 24 are climbing southwesterly, and they climb, the FAA recommends climbing either straight out, which would take you directly over the Perry Farm, or make a 45-degree left-hand turn, which would take you over Hunt Landis, which is a story for another day, or make a 90-degree turn and remain in the pattern, climbing to 1,000 foot. Prior to the planning board meeting, I went up with Mr. Steve Welsh out at the local airport and verified these diagrams. And I would encourage each one of you to go out to the airport and take a flight. Ms. Amanda Welsh can help you with that. Matter of fact, I was out there today and watching aircraft. I've got some good video. If we got a break or something, I can show you the video coming in right over the Perry Farm. When I asked the planning board members if they wanted aircraft to fly over their houses at 285 foot, not one said yes. But when they voted, not one said no. I guess they didn't mind their neighbors living underneath the airport traffic pattern. And if I were to come before you and request to put an airport right next to your city, I think you would deny me, and rightfully so. But should the city annex this property, that's exactly what it's doing to itself. It's putting itself underneath an airport traffic pattern. Yes, there are houses near the airport, but not in a concentrated subdivision such as what's being proposed. Would you want to live underneath this airport traffic pattern? Anybody? No? Well, how about 1,240 family units? Your neighbors. Would you want that to place them in an environment which you yourself would not care to live? Your vote is going to answer that question. Thank you for your time. The airport will, other members of the airport will be following.
Thank you, sir. There's one guy in the back, Mr. McCoy. What, sir?
Yes, sir.
Mr. McCoy has a question.
Just out of curiosity, what is the height or the footage over Oxford, currently over Oxford Park?
Approximately 675 feet of being Oxford Park. Yeah. That would be this point right about here. Mm-hmm. And I get those numbers from this chart right here.
So 675, and you said they're only for 365?
It doesn't come directly over Oxford Park, but it's a beam Oxford Park. It's called this, the FAA has some weird names, and it's this hexagon intersection is what that intersection would be. I'll be more than glad anytime, guys, if you want to meet, I'd be more than glad to meet you, come out to the airport, whatever, we can talk.
And I was just current list wires, and I'm just trying to get a barrier, if you will, or a measurement, if you will. I can't say, I can't completely agree when you say it doesn't fly over Oxford Park, because it flies directly over my house. So I'm just trying to get a barrier again, just to see, or a comparison between the 675 that's currently that I would use versus that 285 or the, so would that be the package 365 or 365?
Yes.
So it'd be pretty much about that.
Slightly steeper angle, which elevates it a little bit higher. But guys, go out to the airport. Mr. Bridges, on the January 15th, you mentioned that you would be interested in that. I'd highly encourage you to talk to Miss Welsh. I went up with her father-in-law, Steve Welsh, and we just verified that, and you can see for yourself.
I was wondering, is your concern that there would be too much noise, or are you concerned about safety? So what, I mean, there are a lot of airports around residential areas, and so I'm trying to figure out, are you just saying that people who live in the homes will be frustrated with the noise, or you have some safety concerns?
Mr. Bridges, I spoke with the airport authority on this issue, and I think I'd prefer that they answer it. To be quite honest, yes, I mean, we see in Chicago, Midway Airport, people, and I've flown into Midway and lots of other airports. I'd rather have them answer it, but maybe sometime we can talk, but I'd rather let them answer that one.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
There's a gentleman out back that, yes, come on up, sir, please.
Good evening. My name is Rob Rivers. I live at 415 Ivy Day Road, Oxford. Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'll be very, very candid. The decision you make on this will most likely determine the future of Henderson-Oxford Airport. Quite frankly speaking, housing developments and airports are incompatible. In my lifetime, I've been a general aviation pilot for 54 years. I've been a professional pilot for 52 years. I still fly professionally and general aviation. And just so we understand, general aviation is everything other than airline flying. Airlines operate at Raleigh-Durham. General aviation does also. Henderson-Oxford Airport is general aviation. I have seen over half of the airports in my lifetime that I flew out of, that I was based at, closed, all because of what I call housing development encroachment. Simply stated, to answer your question, Mr. Bridges, yes, there is a huge safety issue and there is a huge noise issue. Now, one of the things that's great about our airport is as a 5,500-foot long runway paid for by the federal government in a grant several years ago, the extension. That allows us to have corporate jets fly in and out of Oxford. Those corporate jets service Revlon, Bandag, CertainTeed, RTP. At least, I would say almost daily, a corporate jet or corporate turboprop airplane flies into Oxford Henderson Airport. If you've ever gone to Raleigh-Durham and you've been near the runway when an airliner landed, a small airliner puts out about the same amount of noise as a Gulfstream or a Bombardier large corporate jet. You can imagine having an airliner fly over your house 285 feet above your porch. It is going to be deafening. And the homeowners are not going to like that. And that's why housing developments around airports have led to the closures of airports across the country. It's a national problem. Aircraft Owners and Pilots Association, which is sort of a lobbying group for general aviation, has all sorts of data and resources. And they work constantly to keep airports open. But you cannot have houses around airports. And I'm going to cover the safety aspects in just a second. You can also forget about whatever you put in the deed. My experience, and I've been doing this, I've been active in general aviation, former NASA test pilot, naval aviator, airline pilot. You can put whatever you want in a deed. But when jets are flying over your house, when airplanes are flying over your house at 2 in the morning, midnight, 1 a.m., homeowners get very frustrated and very angry. And what do? They come to see you all. I've been through this. There's nothing worse than an agitated group of homeowners who are thinking their property values are decreasing, who are watching airplanes fly over their head at midnight, waking them up, especially only 285 feet above their heads. And that's if you're on glide slope. Airplanes don't always fly on glide slope. Sometimes they're lower and things happen. Sometimes they have mechanical problems. The last accident we had at Henderson-Oxford Airport, an airplane lost engine power on final and landed short of the runway. 2 pilots walked away. The airplane was destroyed. If that airplane hit a house, those pilots are dead, and possibly a family's dead. Let's move on to the next topic. What will Oxford lose when Henderson-Oxford Airport closes? And I'm telling you, it will close. If history is correct, and it has been for the past 50 years, eventually it will close due to pressure from the homeowners. Well, look at Hurricane Helene. All of us saw the videos, the photographs. What did we see? 90% of the videos were of an airport, a general aviation airport with North Carolina Air National Guard Chinooks, with pallets of water, pallets of food, medical supplies, medevac helicopters. There have been 3 tornadoes that hit Oxford since I've lived here for the past almost 17 years. We've had 3 earthquakes, 2 of which damaged my house, one of which almost took down the Washington Monument. So we are not immune to disasters here. We've been lucky. Look at the tornadoes that ripped through Wilson a few years ago. Look at the flooding in the eastern part of the state. General aviation airports were where the Guard went, where the relief agencies went, where Samaritan's Purse went. That's where they staged out of. We're going to lose the ability to attract new industry. I cannot tell you, and Mr. Hines, who flew corporate, I have a lot of friends who fly corporate. Corporations who have industries and factories need to go inspect those and meet with their managers and attend those businesses. And we have a godsend. We have a 5,500-foot runway right here in Oxford that any corporate jet can land on. We're going to lose that. We're going to give that up. Let's look at the economic impact. A study that came out just recently from North Carolina Department of Aviation showed that $88 billion of economic impact results from aviation in the state of North Carolina from our 72 airports in this state, Henderson, Oxford being one of them. $34 billion in personal income, 427,000 employees, and $4.8 billion in tax revenue. Henderson, Oxford, just by itself, $6.7 million in salaries, $819,000 in taxes, and $15.3 million in economic impact to our community. There are 70 airplanes based out there right now, but that doesn't tell the whole story. I mentioned the corporate airplanes that fly in here. Other businesses fly in and out. The Air National Guard flies in and out. Flight schools use that airport as one of their main training bases. The state of North Carolina states that there is $500 in economic output and $12 in state and local taxes for every dollar North Carolina spends investing in airports. So why do housing development encroachments close airports? Mr. Bridges, you touched on it. Mr. Hines touched on it. Noise, safety. This housing development is going to be right under the flight path for one of the 2 runways, and it's right on the departure end for one of the runways. Runway 24, if you're going to land on runway 6, you're going to fly right over that housing area. If you're in the visual traffic pattern, good weather, you're flying the visual pattern, you're going to start at about 600 or 700 feet on the northwest end of that housing development, and by the time you turn to land on the runway, you can be down to 285 feet or below. If you take off on runway 24, you're going to fly over that housing development, probably 500 to 700 feet. I mentioned that I was a professional pilot. For the last 20 years, I've been an expert witness for aviation litigation. I've investigated over 50 aircraft accidents. There's about 700 to 800 general aviation accidents a year in this country. Over half are on takeoff or landing. I've investigated about 50 accidents. Over half of them were takeoff or landing accidents. 15% of those hit a building. So you talk about safety considerations. Would I want my family in a house right underneath an airport traffic pattern? No, I would not. Is general aviation flying safe? Yes, it is. Is driving a car safe? Yes, it is. Are there accidents on the highway? Yes, there are. Are there accidents in the air? Yes, there are. If an airplane hits your house, you're not going to walk away from it. Noise complaints. That is the chief reason why you all, if you're still in your positions in about 10 years, will wish you weren't, because homeowners do not like the noise. One of the things about general aviation airports is they're open 24 hours a day. For our economy to work, that has to be the case. You're not going to want someone flying 300 feet above your house at 3 o'clock in the morning, especially not a corporate jet. Do corporate jets fly into Oxford at night? Yes, they do. Do they bring in people to have meetings first thing in the morning? Yes, they do. So I will tell you, experience has shown, and you can do the research and you can look up, airports that allow housing developments to grow around them end up being closed. They do not survive. And when was the last time you saw a new airport built, a general aviation airport built? I have not seen one in my lifetime. Why is it? It's prohibitively expensive now in America to build a general aviation airport. No community has the funds to do that. So if Oxford Henderson Airport closes because of this housing development and others that will follow, you're not going to have an airport here. You're going to be like Warrenton. You're not going to have an airport to bring in industry, to bring in economic impact. This is a very, very serious situation. And I hope I've conveyed the seriousness of it, because airports just don't survive when cities start letting houses grow up around them. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, sir. I think Mr. McCoy was before you.
The sky's falling. The sky's falling. The sky's falling. That's what's happening. That's what I told you. You take your eyes off the prize. You know one thing? I didn't know we had an airport in Oxford. I've been here longer than the average person in here. Did not know we had one. Didn't know what an airport was. And I'm not the only person standing up here will tell the truth. If you raise your hand, you did not know our airport was important. Commissioner Bridget, you've been on the board a long damn time. When you tell these people that you did not know our airport was important until it was time to annex. You did not know. We got the most precious airport in the world. Ain't got a damn grocery store. Don't take your eyes off the brother. We ain't got a grocery store. Nobody stood up here and said, we can't buy damn eggs. I'm going to Raleigh during Monday. I'm making a grocery list, and that's what we're going to buy our food. Let me tell you one thing, ladies. I know you might think I don't know what I'm talking about. Go to it. This is why I go to the fruit supply. You know where mixed vegetables in the package is. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah. Go to the food line right now and see if it's any out there. My wife sent me out there for a small packet and one for 3 big packs. You have to take that home and cut it in half. Come on. Damn airport, we ain't got nowhere to eat. Don't even have a daggone shoemaker. Can't carry your shoes. Ain't got a decent dry cleaners. Man, charge you, make you pay for you. Make you pay before we clean your clothes. I don't blame it. I don't blame that. Come on, let's be real. Let's be real. We don't have no way to eat. You went to Henderson and you said you had to go eat steak and everybody in the world came on you. Did you know that? Everybody came on you. Oh. You see what I'm talking about? Say you shouldn't have went to Henderson. You should have stayed in Oxford, bought a steak. And let me tell you one thing. Let's be real. Do you want a grocery store or do you want an airport? Which one would you rather have? An airport or a grocery store? Or dry cleaners? Or a shoemaker? Or someone to carry your shoes there? We can't I need my pants taken up when I'm going. Got to go to Raleigh Durham and have your pants taken up. Come on, preach on that. Let's be realistic in here. Let's talk about facts. We can't eat them damn airplanes. You know one thing? Where black people leave an airplane, gonna fly over our houses. They gonna fly over our houses. I live in New York. I live in Harlem. Don't a damn plane fly over Harlem. You think about a plane fly the George Washington Bridge, but it don't fly over Harlem. These people up here talking about these airports and how important this airport. Why don't we sell it? We need to sell the damn airport if it's that expensive. And it means that much to us. We need to sell it. Ain't got nowhere that we can't buy food. And up there can't get eggs. Can't get a decent grocery store. I'm talking about a daggone airport. But they ain't our problem if they buy the house and the plane fly over. That's their problem. They can move. That's what they can do. Got a man down at Creekmore. Oh, I gotta have a mask on to drink water, stand the hell out of people. Gotta have filters, 10 filters. It's in the paper. You think I'm lying? I got it right here. And if I'm gonna read and contradict several lines, take it. It tells you gotta have a mask, you gotta have 5 filters, You gotta have this and that. That's right, it's in the paper, filters. And we up here talking about an airplane. They don't land on Kingsburg Street and they don't fly over Kingsburg Street. I feel sorry for you. Planes don't fly over black people's houses. They do not. They fly around because we might knock them out of the sky. That's right. Man, the people tell me that if you run a water line, you need water, need this, and need that. We don't need to grow. Scare the hell out of you. We need a grocery store. That's what we need. That's what we need. We need a grocery store. We need a shoemaker. We need a place to clear our shoes. We need a dry cleaners. We need a shoe repair. We need a seamstress. We need things like that. Talking about something we don't need. We need a grocery store. That's more important than a damn airplane. I can tell you that. If it fly over your house and too much noise, move. You had enough money to buy a $400,000, $500,000 house, or $600,000. Sell it. We didn't know we had an airport until the annexation started talking about it. There you go. Subdivision coming. You don't like the way the stoplights here. They ain't in the city. We don't have them. I stood there and told you, the county, that's where I pay county taxes. If you live in the city and pay city county tax, you don't get a damn thing for your money. You don't get a damn thing. You want them stoplights, you want them red lights, and you want them roads expanded, wide. You pay county taxes, go out to the county. Go out. I bet you nobody here will be at the county board meeting first Monday night. Won't be that night. You heard a rat, you know what you don't got. You won't even go out there, but you'll come here and threaten these people here, and you can't vote for them. You can't vote for them. No airplane fly over Kingsburg Street. The hell with you. We need a grocery store. We need something more important than that. Don't worry about an airplane. Man, talking about Chicago. We can't hardly spell it. Now, that's my case.
I think the lady back here was part of you.
Thanks everyone for allowing us to speak. My name is Amanda Welsh. I am with the Henderson Oxford Airport. I do try to get out to see y'all, and I did this last January where our friends were able to hear my update. So definitely airport awareness is definitely there. My name is Amanda Welsh. I manage the airport and I also run the FBO Service Center. We call it an FBO at the airport. My husband and I have been living in Oxford since fall of 2019. I'm at 105 North Country Club, so right in town, when we moved up from Raleigh to be closer to work. We keep the FBO open 7 days a week, and we take 24/7 call-out service for anybody who needs that, but that's frequently corporate jets, police, business, and life flight aircraft. Aircraft do indeed fly at all times of day and night. We'll get into that more. This airport is the only source of income that my household makes. My husband and I both work in this, and it provides our living. Protecting the airport from neighbor complaints by zoning appropriate around the airport is vital to keeping our living and the important community feature that the airport is. The airport also provides employment, contracting work, or a place of work to over 24 individuals and businesses. Flight instructors, avionics technicians, interior and upholstery services, aircraft maintenance, aircraft detailers, FBO workers, fuelers, airport line technicians, rental car and catering services, more. These are more than so many things the airport brings into the community and keeps the community going. The airport supports these people with careers down to first jobs, retirement gigs, side hustle, and contract work. Also wanted to quickly remind you of the community outreach and people that the airport serve and hosts and would have trouble doing so with neighbors complaining. The Military History Show every fall, Young Eagles free airplane rides for kids every year, multiple camps, school groups, and teen leadership groups, Sheriff Department treatings, Senate and House representative visits, leadership Granville and Vance. So many people and children come through the airport and have a place of service, learning, and growth. It can be very personal for people. I wanted to just touch on the importance of this particular development. If you'd please reference what Mr. Rod Hines gave you in that form. We've come and we've had concerns about other development, but I just want to press upon how exacting in the traffic pattern this development is. It's just perfectly positioned almost to get the maximum number of airplane flyovers. I know it's not, but it just does seem that way. And I wanted to tell you, I looked. Today was a beautiful day. Runway 6 was in use just by the wind pattern. So that is the 600 foot over the north section of the development. If you want to reference the paper that Rod gave you, 600 foot to 285 foot and then turning inward. That happened all day today. We had training aircraft mostly all day today. They're a little quieter than jets, but come on out, and they're not conversation level at the gathering points that this community says they're going to have. You're not going to just have conversations under these aircraft either. Today, until I left at 5 p.m., 218 of those aircraft flew exactly over this property, almost the entire property, because like you see, they go down the property and then turn back towards the airport. Right now, let's see, it is 8:45, so that's about perfect timing that the North Carolina National Guard comes to work under night vision goggles. These are helicopters, incredibly loud. They go whenever they want to during the daytime, but quite frequently they fly over my house and Oxford Park. You've probably been interrupted the television about this time of day when they come in to do their night vision goggle work. Last week, the 3 a.m. jet did happen. Doctors were flown in to harvest organs from somebody at the Mariah Parham to make organ transplants. And they finished about 2:45, 3 a.m. and took off runway 24 right over this proposed development. I don't think I can emphasize how much more unfortunately placed compared to the airport this development is than others. I know we talked about the other development across the four-way stop in different places. This one is immediately under the traffic pattern, just outside of the runway protection zone, just one little property between where they could not develop. And to that, I understand that this may be legal as far as the FAA is concerned. They do not exactly have jurisdiction here. They provide, and they will provide their feedback because now the developers are aware of the airport and will fill in the forms necessary. But just because it is technically legal does not mean it's a good idea for the city or airport or economics in the region. So I just do want to say that. Maybe it is a legal bad idea, perhaps. So I'd like to put 3 requests forward. This is my going forward. So first of all, the city is doing more annexing of county land. I know that, there's a couple neighborhoods that you're just doing out there. There are some zoning and height ordinances in particular that I know that apply to county land because as of right now, the county is the surrounding jurisdiction of the surrounding airport, right? As you are getting closer and closer, please make an effort in either a special session and or with county representatives. I know that the engineers have spoken with my engineers and differently, but please make a session to make sure that the land they are annexing in this county, when it becomes city land, is protected under similar ordinances that the county is using. And I'm specifically speaking on height ordinances around the airport because you'll be so close now as city, but I'm sure there are others, and I do request that you make a specific consideration to look into those and make sure that they are done properly. My second request, if you decide that this is a acceptable development, the developers are willing and able to put in the deeding and or the marketing and or the whatever. Please codify that and don't let them forget that deed or that promise. That must be done. It really, the development is a bit close, too close for comfort. The people in Oxford Park That neighborhood is about as far close to the very end. They have not developed yet. That's as close as anybody really wants to be, and it is smart to be near an airport. That development would be a perfect stopping point for bringing the city. So again, my third thing, so my first thing was the annexing of county land. My second thing is making sure that the deeds are codified and that you hold the developer to that standard to put that in the deeds that the airport is there. And my third thing is please come out to the airport, come out to the property any time of day or night that the weather is not horrific. And sometimes when it is horrific, we have the loudest flights come in when it's horrific because less training is happening and that's quieter. Please come out. Let me show you our operations, the economics. I have so much information that I can give you, and I try to give you at my yearly or bi-yearly meetings to the commissioners. But thank you. My colleagues and friends are touching on so many different issues of why the airport is important and why it is important to prioritize the airport that you support, that the county supports, and that other counties and cities support. So we appreciate your time. Thanks. Do you have anything for me?
Well, I would say this. I certainly am not interested in development encroaching on the airport to the point that it would jeopardize us having an airport. But it seems to me that before all this came before us, that planning board and folks who look at this before it gets here, that there were discussions about issues with the airport. I can't imagine that y'all just showed up today.
I can talk to that if you like. I can talk to that.
Well, I'm just interested why, because until.
So may I speak to that?
Yeah.
Certainly. So I heard that there was a neighborhood meeting in July-ish. I'm sorry if that. The airport was not notified about that. We had no idea that neighborhood meeting happened. I was completely unaware that the development was a possibility until the week before the last month's zoning board meeting. Planning board, yes, planning and zoning, thank you, board meeting. And so we were really blindsided by this. I don't think the developer had any, now if I don't want to speak for you, but did you have anything in the works before that meeting? I think not.
May I answer your question, Mr. Bridges?
Sure.
Both Amanda and myself were at the planning board meeting. I gave a very similar presentation, including handouts to them and also the developers. The developers at that time had no knowledge that there was an airport out there. They had not spoken to the FAA, they had not spoken to the airport authority, they had not spoken to the airport manager. They went back, and that's where they got this information that they put up tonight.
Would you like to refute that?
I asked, once again, when I was talking to the planning board, I asked each one of them, and I showed them. As I asked you, would you want to live underneath this? There was a lot of discussion. And, well, to answer your earlier question that you asked me that I kind of avoided, Mr. Rivers answered. There's noise and the way people behave underneath airports. I have 4 airports here. Where I grew up, the first airport where I took my first airplane ride, it's closed. There's an Amazon facility over it. The second airport, 4 miles up the road, this is in Joliet, Illinois, near the Chicagoland racetrack, if anybody's familiar with NASCAR, 4 miles up the road from that. New Lenox Howell, you can see housing developments there. 4 miles up the road from that, Frankfurt Airport, closed. It's got heavy equipment on it. It got in the way of progress. You say that would never happen around here. Go down to Chapel Hill, Horace Williams Airport. It's closed. It's got big X's on the runway. Big airports are gorillas. You're not going to do nothing about the noise. Little airports, you're going to stomp out. The planning committee, I was to be quite honest, quite bewildered because I asked them, would anyone want to live underneath that traffic pattern? Not one of them said yes, but as I indicated, their vote said, we'll let our neighbors do it. Okay? And I would like to know the recommendation that the planning board gave to this board, because there was discussion and concern about the airport traffic pattern. So, you know, to be quite honest, I think the planning board has let you down. I'm sorry to come up here and take a minute.
I got one question.
But we did discuss it at the planning board.
May I say as well, the past 6 weeks, our engineers, the engineers, I believe you, sir, had a meeting. And since we have realized the threat, we've worked more so, and we have been speaking on this. So we were not able to previously.
Just before you, Commissioner Velez, I got a question. You
Yes.
mentioned that you did not find out anything about the community meeting.
Correct. I was not aware.
Maybe you did not, but I tell you what about the planning board. Our planning director and the planning board, they really do all they can to put the information out.
I did not mean that as a disparaging comment towards anybody who's doing their job in the city. Absolutely not,
to
sir.
answer, the planning board recommended the approval of this
Sure.
zoning. And yes, I was at that planning board meeting when the gentleman spoke about the height and all that good stuff. Okay? So the planning board did their job, they recommended, and everybody's hearing. I think.
Surely,
I just want to clarify that.
I was not notified. I was notified. The county actually last month sent me a letter about a development that had potential airport impact, even though it was quite far. But I was never notified by the city as the airport manager. Myself nor my board were ever notified by the city that this development was a question. That's the truth, and I'm not trying to disparage anybody saying that, but that is why, sir, we've just brought that in.
Mrs. Welch, now, did I hear you say that the FAA has no jurisdiction over you guys?
They do not have a binding legal jurisdiction over your decision in this.
But that ain't what you said. You said that the FAA
They
do
will
not
make
have
recommendations.
jurisdiction over Oxford Henderson Airport. That's what you said.
No, sir.
That's what I heard.
No, sir. I did not say that the FAA has a lot of jurisdiction over the airport property itself.
Because I was gonna ask. Because when I heard that, I was gonna ask who governs over the Oxford Henderson Airport.
The FAA.
The FAA.
So my statement, if I misspoke, I'm very sorry. This development, the FAA, because it's out of the runway safety zone, they cannot come in and say absolutely not. They don't have that jurisdiction to override you at this time.
And it could be that my ears are mistaking me, but
The
I know
FAA
when
has
you was talking,
jurisdiction over
I
the
know when you was
Henderson Oxford
talking, you said you brought up the FAA and you said, and they don't have jurisdiction over what's going
Over
on
your
here.
decision tonight.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. Okay, well,
Yes,
correction.
My next speaker will
Okay,
address more of
okay,
that.
well, okay, well, if that is what you said, then my apologies.
Thank
Then
you,
I
sir.
just
That's fine.
misheard.
You can always clarify.
And if the FAA, don't you think that if the FAA is your governing body, and the FAA is telling these developers that they fall within the category, you know?
I do understand where your question is coming from. I believe, may Mr. John Carver speak now because he has a lot of information on that.
Yeah, but I'm
The young lady asked it, unless she's ready to say, okay.
yeah, but I'm
Just
not.
because this is the exact.
I'm not done yet.
Okay.
So
Because I can answer
so
what
to
yours
the,
if you like.
and I'm not trying to pick any sides, but I'm just, I'm comparing what's being said from one side, what's being said from another. And Mr. Developer, when did you say you supposed to have gotten a confirmation on the FAA report?
Yeah, so basically, yes, you go ahead.
So we'll have to submit, there's a 7460 that is submitted to the FAA, and it will basically outline our development with the heights, and that's submitted, they'll
Okay.
model it, and then they'll evaluate it.
But as for right now, it's not stamped on paper yet from the FAA.
Correct.
Okay,
I think Mr. Carver's will answer the questions
And-
you have. Would you like to pause?
and we'll definitely get to Mr. Carver. I'm just trying to cover some of my concerns.
Yeah, I think your concerns will be covered in his speech.
Well, and I'll definitely listen, Mr. Carver. I will definitely listen to you when it's your time. And so that was my concern. I wanted to know if whether it was official and stamped on paper from the FAA. You saying that it wasn't, and you know, I clarified some things with Mrs. Welch about the who rules and like who governs over the Oxford Henderson Airport. And I guess the only other question I got is, Mr. Murray, do you mind if I ask you a question, Mr. Murray?
Of course, yes, sir.
You actually live across the street from this soon-to-be subdivision, correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
Now, how does the noise bother you? Anything with the Oxford Airport? Because that would definitely, if it's going over this subdivision or this future subdivision, and you actually live there, then it's actually flying over your house, correct?
Different planes take different paths at different points, but sometimes they'll come over our land. Yes, sir.
Which I don't think is that far of a difference when you talking about planes.
It's
Now,
very
what?
specific, it really is a difference. I don't want to be pedantic, other than the amount that we need to be pedantic, sir. Is that okay if I? But he's on the more
Okay.
on the downwind of 2-4. If you like, I can make.
But
an
I'm trying to
X.
get an understanding from Mr. Moray, being a resident that actually lived there, with all due respect.
He's gonna live in a wider area.
Can I finish my question with Mr. Moray? Mr. Moray, you actually have a family home there, right?
Yes, sir. My
I
wife
mean,
and I
with
live there.
horses and everything else.
Yes, sir.
2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, when an airplane comes by there, is it waking you up, shaking up your house? The reason I'm asking, because I never seen you come here and complain about noise from the airport. So, and I know that you was the only individual that reached out to me because you had concerns because it would directly impact you because you live directly across the street.
Regarding the
And
commercial,
so,
yes, sir.
and so I figured that since you that close, you can kind of give me a citizen's perspective of what you're hearing from your home.
Yeah, no, of course. So, my home, I guess there's not a map handy, but my home is immediately south of the proposed development. We do sometimes get some airplanes that come over. We sometimes get some helicopters that come over. There's some noise associated with it. When we first moved in, we did notice it some.
Yeah.
It's something that over time we've gotten more used to. But to be clear, we are south and a little bit, I think, as I understand, a little bit farther off of this flight
But
pattern.
does it aggravate you to the point that it affects your day-to-day life?
For my home, no, sir.
Okay. But thank you.
Thank you. I think Mr. Carter.
Yes. Wait a minute. You still don't want to talk, right?
I would like to speak, but I'm willing to let Mr. Carter speak.
Okay. Mr. Carter.
Good. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is John Carver. You good? Mayor, you good?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry.
My name is John Carver, and I live at 6040 Stony Creek Lane in Oxford. I'm here today as the Granville County representative for the Henderson-Oxford Airport Authority. Shortly after the planning meeting for this property, I was advised by our airport manager, Amanda Welsh, that there was to be a housing development which is going to occur right under the flight path for runway 06 at the airport. I contacted Ms. Rachel Bingham, the Deputy Director of the Department of Aviation in Raleigh. I told her of the proposed development under the flight path for runway 6. She advised me that there were safety concerns which arise when this situation occurs. She stated that a Form 7460, the one Brock Pfister just referenced, which is a proposal for development of, or construction, okay, for the development, that form must be filled out by the developer so the FAA can make a comment. So in answer to your question regarding, well, who rules what, that's the form that is used to advise the FAA that this is occurring, and they comment about it. So they will, once they file the form, they will come back and say, okay, here's what we found, and you go from there. So it really all hinges on that, okay? She went on to tell me that if this form is not submitted by the developer to the FAA, that the FAA can be found in violation of its grant assurances for the $9.5 million that we have received for the airport improvements in the last 15 years. This can lead to loss of future grants and having to pay back the $9.5 million.
Repeat that?
I will, because it's very important that everybody understand this. She said that the airport authority can be found in violation of the grant assurances for the $9.5 million that we received for airport improvements in the last 15 years. So Ms. Bingham followed up our conversation with an email detailing our path forward. I contacted Cheryl Hart at the planning department with this information. She forwarded it onto the developer, who shared it with the engineering group, Kimley Horn, who did the presentation tonight. Mr. Brock Pfister, who spoke to you, contacted me regarding the development and requested overlay maps for the airport, which I provided him through our engineers. I then contacted the county's attorney, Jim Wren, to research issues pertaining to the differences between the county and city ordinances in relation to the height restrictions and the airport. The county already has height restrictions in their ordinance where the city does not. So they will have to be developed. I mean, you could use the counties as a template. The airport has 4 owners: the city of Oxford, the city of Henderson, the county of Granville, and the county of Vance. The city of Oxford should have communicated with the other 3 owners of their intention to rezone for residential under the flight path for the airport traffic pattern. All the owners of the airport will be accountable if the authority is found to have violated the grant assurances. I strongly urge the board to postpone this rezoning vote until the FAA has provided the feedback on the Form 7460. That'll settle it. In all likeliness, I would say, they're going to say, yeah, we recognize it. It's there. They're not going to stop anything. I'll tell you that. Okay. But in order for us to protect those grant assurances, we better have that document, because if somebody says, well, we don't really need to do that. Yeah, you do, because $9.5 million is at stake, and nobody wants to pay that back. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir.
No pilot. I fly, commercial aircraft. Is there a way for the airport to adjust traffic patterns and heights? I mean, are you, in order for a pilot to make a safe landing, are those heights locked in?
They are, yes, they are standard heights developed by the FAA, and they approve them. He's correct. The FAA actually flies them.
Can I ask a question? Form 7460. Is there a timeline when it should be submitted?
Okay, typically, the FAA likes for it to be submitted 60 days prior to construction. However, based on what I've told you about the grant assurances, wouldn't you like to know sooner than that? I know Granville County would. I know City of Henderson would, and the City of County of Vance. And that's an issue that needs to be addressed now. So whether they submit it later or now, I mean, how about earlier than later? And then you put it to bed.
What's the name of that form again?
It's called a 7460.
7460.
FAA 7460. And it's a notice of proposed construction that it's about to occur.
Okay.
They state that anytime there's a development within a 5-mile radius of the airport, that form should be filled out. So here we are. I mean, it probably wasn't done for Oxford Park, but I don't believe we've had any complaints from the people in Oxford Park about planes flying over, because they're much higher than they will be for this new development on the Perry Farm.
Yeah, so just a general question. If you may not have the answer, ma'am, if you could, you mentioned the number of flights today. On average, how many planes would be? And we're going to speak on specifically runway 6. How many planes on a daily average?
Our average is somewhere around 220 to 250.
Is there a particular time? Is there a time frame, or is this just all day long?
All day long.
So we're saying like
Most are concentrated during the daytime, but we do have middle of the night flights as well.
okay. When you say daytime, just out of curiosity, I'm
Oh,
just
7 to 7.
Okay.
In the summer, 9 plus.
okay.
The airport actually has a tracking system that tracks all the flights in and out of the airport, and we can provide that to you if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah, in all this last question, just in all fairness, because, and I'll just say me, what I've heard tonight is that anytime a housing development is built around the airport closes. That's what I've heard. So my question to you all, because you guys are the subject matter experts in this, or we'll say that for tonight. Except I personally haven't got a clear. Only thing I'm hearing is, if it happens, and again, I just in fairness for everyone, because I think sometimes we get locked in. We don't look at things in this totality. We get kind of locked in one area,
sure.
and that's the focus. So my question to you, and it may be a difficult one, are there situations such as what we are currently facing in for our airport, where the airports are still in operation?
Oh, absolutely.
So it's not an assured thing that.
Oh, no, okay, absolutely. You're right.
Yeah,
no,
and I just want to just.
No, there's no.
I want to be able to look at.
Sometimes people tend to want to paint the picture that it's the worst it can be, and that's what they want to share with you. But you are correct. No, there are situations where there are operating airports in the vicinity of communities, and yes, they survive. However, the people, what's important is, that the local realtors who are selling those homes communicate to the buyer, you're buying a house that's in the flight path of an airport. There's gonna be airplanes flying over your house. That's what's important.
Right. Absolutely. I agree. And
I actually live a little farther down, closer to Oxford Park. Planes fly over my house all the time, but I'm a pilot. That's music to my ears.
Right.
You know, so everybody's a little different. You know what they can tolerate, or you know, some people like planes flying over their house. Other people don't care for it. So,
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, as well.
I want to
Make
go
a
back.
statement about Form F, the FAA 7460.
right, 7460. Correct.
7460.
Yes.
That's the form that would let the 4 entities at the airport know that
They're not going to come back and say, you
"We
are
owe
in
you."
violation of your grant assurances. Yes, that's why I'm saying it's important that get done now. And then we know, okay, they don't have a problem with it. They're not going to poke us, you know, and say, hey, you know, it really comes down to are the 4 owners being good stewards of the airport, you know, and that's the form. Okay, here, this is what's going to happen near the airport. We're going to give you the information, and you get to give us feedback on it. So here's our time.
How long does it take?
That I don't
For
know.
that kind of a
I don't know.
evaluation
I don't
to
know
be done?
what the time period is to get a 7460 submitted, for them to, you know, review it and come back and say, here's our report. You know, I can ask some questions and see if I can find out for you.
So, it's a lot of developers asking to come up forward, the engineer.
So the gentleman I spoke to, the Ford planner with the FAA, he wouldn't give me a direct, it will take exactly this long. He said anywhere in the range of, call it 45 to 90 days is an average turnaround time. But generally they shoot for the 45 to 60.
Mr. Pistol, can you come forward, take a look at this map that the gentleman provided? What percentage of the development, I see that the 3rd phase, the commercial phase, would be wiped out. So just for information, what percentage of this development would you lose if, let's say, you decided you weren't going to build over the flight path?
It's hard to say just based on the numbers here. I think the biggest thing, and the gentleman here can speak to this as well. One thing that we looked at when we were talking to the FAA was the elevation of the runway relative to the elevation of the site. And we're about 15 feet below the elevation of the runway currently. The FAA, the biggest thing they're looking for is specific slopes in a conical shape. They're looking at the elevation of what we're building. And the max height allowed that we are restricting already in our zoning is 50 feet. So just based on where this easement is coming across, we can't really change the grade on that. So at the worst case, we would be 15 feet below there with approximately 35 foot tall. And that's about a 2-story home on average. And so when you're thinking about it from a height perspective, even after the home is built, the roof of that home is likely only 5 to 10 feet higher than that runway. That's about 3,500 feet away. And so when you deal with the elevation of the plane coming off, it's not necessarily, at least in the conversations we had at the FAA, now they will verify this on the form that we submit, but they weren't concerned at just a surface level look of the elevation. It was more, and they agree, it's more of a notification issue for them. And so they'll verify that during the form review.
There's a lot of things they look at.
Yeah.
And we'll comment on
Yes.
In this form. So.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had another question going back to Commissioner Bridges' question. I heard the FAA determines the heights, and Commissioner Bridges, correct me if I'm wrong, you were asking if the heights could be adjusted. I personally didn't hear a definitive yes or no, so that's my question as well. We know what the heights are? Is it 275, 285? Can those heights be adjusted, or are those set in stone?
Those are set by the FAA and are standard based on the size of your airport. So for the size airport we have, that is a standard flight pattern.
But so when that was built, there was, variables, and one of them was not this development. So now we have a new variable. So the question is, now with the new variable, can the FAA come back in and take a look and reevaluate, or?
The thing is, okay, as a pilot, obviously you are going to a destination, an airport. You know, you come in, there's a flight pattern that you fly, and then you start a descent from there down to the airport. Well, they don't typically give you, you know, a profile like this to fly into an airport. So, you know, it's a standard pattern. They usually don't. I mean, have you ever flown on a commercial aircraft where, you know, the flight was all of a sudden, you know, you're in a pattern and then, you know, right down to the ground? They're not going to do that to passengers, and they don't do it to pilots either. I'm just telling you, you know, it's kind of like when you're driving a car, you have to stay in certain lanes, you know. That's how it's set up.
Does our vote on this issue prevent that document from happening at a later time and it not having a negative effect?
The quick answer to that is no. However, if something comes up and you voted to go ahead, now we may be in violation of our grant insurances.
I mean, all we're voting on is the zoning.
I understand, but it's about getting this form completed.
Got a question. If you submit the form and it comes back and the FAA says, no, violation, what can happen? Again, more likely, the gentleman say it will not violate anything. It's just.
I can't say that because I'm not the FAA.
Yeah,
I'm just saying.
right. You said that we could be possible liable, but if the form, what if Form 7460 says no go?
So they're going to look at, I mean, they don't necessarily say a go, no go. They're typically looking at elevations and they'll make recommendations back. I think there's, like you said, there's a plethora of things they're looking at. It's not just specific to that elevation. They're also making other recommendations to the airport in that same process. The thing that they're making a recommendation to us is they're looking at specific elevations of our building, and they may say, this area, you can't be over a certain elevation. If that happens, then we would have to reevaluate our plan and look at potentially losing those homes in that area. And then, yeah, I don't like that's the question you asked. We would have to reevaluate and come back and talk to the city about what we would do in that situation. But it's not, I mean, the concern that we're hearing is that the form needs to be submitted to ensure that the grant and the money that was already put out is held. We're committing to do that. Like, we have no thing, I mean, saying before you're telling me, we are submitting that form. Because again, we have to. I mean, the FAA is required it.
It's required.
In the form that Rachel, that you mentioned, the email she said, one of the requirements from the FAA is if the FAA asks you to submit that form, you have to submit that form.
Okay.
For this development. So we've already been asked through that process.
So as Commissioner Bridges stated, we are only rezoning. You still have to go through the process of the 7460 before you start doing any construction in there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Is that right? Okay.
Good.
Any more questions for gentlemen?
I'm still not seeing the picture.
Thank you, sir.
ladies.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
As we move to the left.
Wait a minute.
Wait a minute. Ma'am.
Anna Houseman, 306 Broad Street. I have some very quick questions that came up as I was processing all of this information. For one, some of the things that were said are a little bit concerning that if this was approved and we went through, then it's up to realtors to express that to buyers. It's deeded, it's all of these things. Like having bought a house myself, I can tell you that that process is really overwhelming. And those lawyers probably could have put a whole lot of stuff in my closing statements that I would have been like, well, no. I mean, that's just an overwhelming instance anyways. And I'm a little concerned about leaving some trust to our local realtors who, in my personal experience, have not always been the most forthcoming. I live in the historic district, and when I bought my home, my plaque was hidden in a closet where I would have not found it until I moved in. So I didn't know I was moving into a historic district, which has a direct impact, right, on how I can take care of my home and things that I can and can't do to repair it. And so if we're saying like, well, we're leaving it up to realtors to express something that may or may not be of like interest to a home buyer, that makes me a little bit nervous that why would a realtor who's got money on the line be saying, and by the way, did you know there's an airport that's going to be real? I don't know. That's just one concern that popped up into my head. I'm curious, and I'm not expecting answers to any of these specifically, but just things that I'm hoping maybe you guys are also thinking about. If this goes through and then we're selling it, and then let's say in a couple of years' time, people do start coming to complain about the noise, and people are moving because they don't want to be in that noise. What's the economic impact of having vacant homes or for the development if they can't sell because words got out that they're on this and nobody's like dying to live in this air traffic zone? Like, I'm just curious what that impact is for selling houses, how that impacts us for just having all of these like vacant, empty lots. And then that's like a longer, broader question than I think any of us want to answer maybe right now at 9:22 at night. But I also heard in that we're looking at potentially decreasing the number of townhomes. And on one hand, I understand why and the benefit to decreasing that and what it could add as far as like open space, et cetera, and from a density standpoint. But from an affordable housing standpoint, I don't really understand or know what the price point is for this development. But in my experience, townhomes have usually been a little more affordable than single family, like standalone homes. So I'm curious of all the things to remove, why we're removing something that could potentially be an easier price point to enter in. I don't have a feelings one way or another. I'm just curious as to why that particularly was done, when we're also saying market research showed that we want a variety of homes offered and we need a variety of things, and that would add a little more variety rather than just single family detached homes. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's allow Jennifer, I'm sorry, let's allow the young lady come up and then we'll get you. Mr. McCoy. Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jennifer Parrott. I am a resident and also run a business in downtown Oxford. I am a concerned resident, concerned about the amount of housing developments coming to Oxford, the strain it's putting on our infrastructure, the congestion it will create, and the small town living that brought many residents here slip away. The family business that I run has been here for 39 years. There's something to be said for that. When the population of Oxford has barely changed in 30 years, yet here we are, still strong. But I know I can't just stand up here and say, I don't want this and I want our town to remain small. But it's not just me. Listen to your constituents. For over a month now, I've read letters written to the Ledger stating their concern. I implore you to listen. Our quaint town has some remarkable, intelligent people, as we see here tonight, and a lot of them have made valid points. I, in particular, enjoyed reading Thomas Blaine's on infill development. I remember reading an article last year from John Mayo on growth is not inevitable. He said, and I quote, "Sometimes the people must remind the mayor and commissioners that the town is the people and they are elected to represent them, not dictate what they think is best." He goes on to say that overpopulation is mankind's greatest threat, placing strain on natural resources, infrastructure, and the people that reside in the area. As we stand at 8,600 in population, the developments that have been approved just in the past months will double our size in a short amount of time. Are we ready for that? Roughly 4,000 units are coming to the same area. What measures are in place to handle the population in that small area or in that area with two main roads? Salem Road and Taps Creek are already congested when Oxford Prep has school arrival and dismissal. I know they talked about the stoplights on the loop, and I think that's wonderful because that is a hazard. But what about the stop sign at Horner to Salem? How will the residents from Horner and even this development turn onto Salem and going the other way towards the airport at the four-way stop? What measures are in place there? I read the Oxford's recent, I believe it was 2023 comprehensive plan. Oxford surveyed, they surveyed Oxford residents, and the top concerns were the following. Number one, impacts of growth. That was the number one concern of your residents. 2, safety and public services. 3, preservation of downtown. 4, public school and school options. And 5, small town living changing in Oxford. People move to Oxford for small town living. If you didn't grow up here, a lot of people that are moving in are coming because they want to get out of the Triangle area and they want to get out of the congestion. With what we are doing, I feel that that congestion is they're just going to be repeating where they lived. And us small town residents that grew up here, we don't want it. I was sadly disappointed in the last annexation meeting of the Hunt land. I felt it was apparent that you had already had your minds up before the people got up to speak. Do better, be better. Listen to your residents that elected you. Take heed to what they are saying. If we turn down these developments, Oxford will not disappear or die. It will actually flourish in its true character. A small town with charm, historic character, and a strong sense of community pride. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Mr. McCoy,
I'd like to say one thing to the airport, all these pilots in here. None of you respected this sitting attorney. None of you. That's who you should have been addressing your problems to. He the one to get paid, not these commissioners. You didn't respect the county, our city attorney, and you know I'm right. Okay. I tell you what, you pay taxes. You pay his salary. Okay. You know why the sky is falling. These people come up here and run these business downtown. They won't grow because they don't want competition. They don't want competition. That's what it is. They know if we grow, they don't want competition. That's what it is. That's what it is. They don't want competition. And so we gotta have 10,000 people to make a city. You have to have 10,000 people. 10,000. The only way you get grocery stores, you get things that we need, that's what we gotta have. 10,000 people in the city of Oxford. And you know one thing? You can't get 10,000 building a house here, a building a house here. Everybody in Oxford knows damn well, you've never seen these many houses go up around town on these vacant lots until, you know, Mr. Brooks, you ain't never seen these many houses go up and down Goshen Street, all over town, that popcorn, filling up these little lots because they know the sky's falling. They scared. Now they realize they should have built them houses on those lots a long time ago. That's what they should have done. Now it's too late. These people using scare tactics. That's what they're doing. That's what they're doing to this board. Scare tactics. And you know what thing? When those people on Antioch, and you can laugh, when those black people over there, and all those people coming from Villa subdivision, where were you at? Where were you at then? At home, looking at TV and don't give a damn about them. And now you're gonna come up here, Commissioner Bridges, talking about affordable housing. You know, I know what that would mean. Affordable housing. Don't nobody want affordable housing. Build them over there, but not over here. Affordable housing. Yes, I said it. You're worried about the price. Man gonna develop a subdivision, gonna tell him how much to charge for his house. Affordable housing. You didn't ask those people over in Antioch and now over in that area. Nobody came to support. We didn't have an airport, man. We didn't have an airplane or nobody. Nobody talked about sewer treatment plants. How you gonna treat the water? What about the sewer treatment plants? Nobody came to this board from Antioch and talked about a sewer treatment plant. Nobody talked about the water. Nobody. Nobody protected those people. It was all right. We gotta have 10,000 people. And we gonna get them. You come here all you want, we gonna get 10,000 people. They gonna come. And we gonna have a grocery store. And we gonna have things everybody else has. I pay 2 taxes. I pay city taxes and county taxes. And you wanna know the problem? The county needs to support the city and the sewer and water. That's what you need to do. Ask the county that you pay your taxes and support the city. I hope they raise the taxes. I hope they raise the taxes. Then you'll cry.
Okay, we'll move over to the left of my side now. You guys been waiting forever. Sir?
Good evening, Mayor, board members. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. I'm Jerry Coynes. I'm here on behalf of 2 clients, Granville County, as well as the Henderson-Oxford Airport Authority. So I do have 2 different letters that I would like to submit into the record. I will kind of do a high-level overview of each letter, but I just wanted to have copies for each of you. Just wanted to go ahead and submit those into the record. You guys can review and consider those at your own time, and also look while I'm briefly reviewing. Like
Yes, sir.
Should be 1 copy for everyone and then a copy for the clerk. So, again, as I noted, here in we're wearing 2 different hats. One on behalf of the Henderson-Oxford Airport Authority. So most I'm just going to piggyback on some of what has already been said. Not going to rehash those details. Certainly not going to go into the technical specifications that were addressed previously. But as the Oxford Board, you guys do have representation on the authority board, and as part of your provides ongoing support to the authority. And as evident by the development that you guys have before you tonight, the development you guys had before you last month, it's very clear to see that the forecast for continued growth of Oxford in the vicinity of the airport is a pressing issue. So while the authority does not necessarily take any hard position on the expansion of the city's corporate limits, whether there's going to be any annexation, the authority does want to urge the city to adopt appropriate measures to protect the city as the city plans for growth and territorial expansion. Mr. Carver did a good job hitting as far as the grant assurances and those concerns. Those are very, very viable concerns. I won't rehash those, but just want to note that, again, those grant assurances are very, very serious financial considerations, both for the City of Oxford as well as the other members of the authority. As far as the authority, the main thing that we're here requesting, and this is again going to piggyback off some of what's been previously said, the county has height ordinances in effect. The airport right now is in the county's jurisdiction. The county has an ordinance that addresses height ordinances. What we would one of our requests would be that prior to assuming jurisdiction, zoning authority over the property, we would request that the city take appropriate measures to adopt height restrictions that either mirror or are similar to what the county has. Part of what you have in your what I just handed is the copy of the Granville County Oxford Henderson Airport Height Ordinance. As you can tell from some of the speakers there's a lot of technical details when it comes to airport matters. We are very willing to sit down, have conversations with commissioners, planning staff, appropriate parties to get those measures in place so we have an ordinance that's viable. I'll simply just reference there are a couple other FAA advisory circulars and other requirements that are submitted. Again, the 7460 that's gotten a lot of attention this evening. So we just, again, as you guys move forward in your decision, our request would be before moving forward with the rezoning and looking to take any jurisdiction, that we pause, address your ordinance, because as one of the prior speakers said, if you were to annex essentially right beside the airport, you're putting your city right beside an airport, and I think that's appropriate to pause, make sure your ordinance addresses those concerns, and again, looking to the county's ordinance should provide a pretty good guidance, and we're very happy to have that conversation and dialogue. So that's my quick spiel on the Henderson-Oxford Airport Authority. On the county side, different set of issues, and a little bit of the elephant in the room has been kind of a little bit of the back and forth for what we've been doing with zoning, or requesting the rezoning, requesting annexation. It's been, I think you saw in the developer's plan, that was one of the next steps. So what we're here for, and speaking on behalf of the county, is to ensure a smooth transition of zoning authority that meets the requirements of applicable law, as well as assure that the Oxford Henderson Airport Authority is considered for any future zoning actions. So those are kind of the list of concerns that I just addressed with the Oxford Henderson Airport. I will note, just for the record, the issues that I've kind of outlined in here, these are not first time coming. These are issues we have previously raised with city staff. We're still here, so we're bringing them to you because to the county, they're very important that you hear them, they're on the record, and that the county's position is clear as far as this development. And the main thing here is property must be annexed or in the city's ETJ before it may be rezoned. That's essentially the threshold issue that I think is being missed. You look at maps, the property tonight, not in the ETJ. Property, the Hunt Farm property development last month, not in the ETJ. I think there's a tiny slither that may be in the ETJ. And if you review Article 2 of Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes, as well as plenty of commentary from School of Government, which I know a lot of local governments rely on, the statutes are very clear that while annexation and rezoning may be done concurrently, you cannot do rezoning prior to annexation. You can do them together, you can rezone, then you can annex, or you can do them together. I know there's several board members up here probably had some of the rezonings before. I think what's typically been the practice, and a lot of jurisdictions do, they hear and tee them up and have everything heard, and it's done concurrently. You can't annex something, or you can't rezone something that you haven't annexed. I think if you just pause and just think at that at the very basic level, the property before you is currently subject to county's zoning ordinances, county police power, and has not been annexed. It's not in the ETJ. And looking at, again, this Perry Farm development, again, noted that it's not in the ETJ. To my knowledge, it's not been noticed for a public hearing for annexation. To my knowledge, there is no pending petition for annexation. I know it was mentioned that that was something that would be done later. That's not the requirements and the procedure that the statutes allow. So to be clear on what the county's position and the county's perspective will be is clearly that's the wrong steps, not lawful, not the correct way to proceed. So the county's position is that these properties are not properly annexed and either concurrently or subsequently rezoned. The county will have to continue to exercise its zoning authority and police power over these properties. That's for the one today. Also for the one, I know it's not before us today. Same thing applies for the one that was previously done. We're not able to just move forward and have a rezoning and just have these property, this rezoning lie dormant until whenever they may be annexed, if they are. Obviously another question for the board. And that's a big question. And you know why? Because that's why they normally tee them up to either have them heard concurrently or at least prior to having the rezoning done. So again, any zoning action taken by the city without having proper jurisdiction will not be recognized by the county. To be clear, that would include no development permits being issued based on purported city zoning until the properties are properly annexed and rezoned. I will again note, these are issues we raised. We don't often come before other boards. These are issues we raised with staff. Matt's still here, so we just wanted to put that on your radar. So as you guys make your decision, you at least know clearly where the county stands. Of course, I won't reiterate the provisions as far as the Oxford Henderson Airport, but those are my two positions. One with respect to the airport authority, and again, that's if you're gonna proceed there, whether this is annexed and maybe you're done properly later, I still think it's something you guys need to push and do. So that I think we still need to make that effort. This, as far as the county's position on the rezoning, I hope that provides you guys some clarification. I'm happy to answer any questions. And sorry, maybe I should have led with this earlier.
This board has 3 lawyers on it. We have a city attorney on it. Okay. You said this is the first time you come into the county's coming to this meeting. Was this handled previously, communication to our city attorney? And
yes,
do you realize that there is a joint meeting being worked out right now between the board of the city and the county? You don't know that, right? But there's a meeting coming that we have petitioned to handle a lot of these issues. So if you're representing the county, I will hope to tell you that. But I'm going to turn this over, a lot of questions to our city attorney. And like I said, we have 3 attorneys on this board. And I'm not a legal person.
Just to quickly address your issue, the prior communication was last week. It was directed to city attorney, city manager, and city planning director. That answers your question.
But you didn't know we were having a joint session coming between the 2 boards.
The issue we're trying to address is what's on the agenda tonight.
I just want to make that clear to you. Mr. City Manager, City Attorney, when he has something to say.
We probably need to discuss this in the closed session.
Okay. I believe the attorney or city attorney has always advised us directly, and this outburst is not really, and I know you did not intend for that.
No.
So, I have a question for Attorney Cornelius. I hear you talking about changes in ordinances relative to height restrictions and things like that for the airport.
Yes.
And I'm reflecting back on my initial question,
Sure.
Can there be adjustments relative to heights for planes flying over residential areas? If that's not adjustable, then you say the county already has it, right? Already has height restrictions relative to the airport.
Correct.
And you feel that we should adopt something close to what the county does
I think it would be prudent for the city to consider adoption of an ordinance that would fit well with any developments that may, as territorial expansion is being considered and possibly pursued. I think it's prudent to perhaps use that as a framework and have an ordinance that if there's going to be territorial expansion in and around the general airport area, that you have an ordinance in effect to address being close to an airport.
And I'm assuming that involves height restrictions.
Yes, tons of technical details. To me, I think that's use the guide and get a lot of the technical experts and planning staff to put that together.
Well, it sounds like there's some level of flexibility. I mean, it seems to me that if they're, I believe somebody explained that pilots have to come in on a guide path to be able to land at an airport. What do we have to decide if there are already rules about flight paths that
and
pilots have to have?
Some of that I think could be dialogue and discussion with the airport authority. If anything, I'd be happy to, if Mr. Carver wants to address that question. I think your question is, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think your question is, if FAA has its regulations, what different or what would be the impact of also having an ordinance, and what difference would that be? I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think that's kind of what I'm hearing. But again, I think that would be a dialogue for those parties to have, because it does seem this got here really quick. I think also with the concerns related to the rezoning and annexation, my hope would be that we find that there's a little more time to address that issue.
Mr. Lumpkins.
Jerry, so I think Granville County's height restrictions are 100 feet. All right.
Right. Yes.
Construction.
For construction, I don't have the number.
I think it is. So are you saying that we need to come up with a height ordinance for the city of Oxford? If this land is annexed in, is it still an issue here where the developer is self-limiting to 50 feet max? So if we adopted Granville County's 100 foot, the developer would already be half of that.
To me, I think again we get back to if you're putting an ordinance or a proper city-owned property that's going to be subject to city planning and zoning, that you have an ordinance in effect to the extent needed beyond maybe what FAA already requires, that addresses those questions and concerns. So when citizens have questions or concerns, that may be your baseline. There may be things you want to make more stringent to protect homeowners. But again, we also get back to a little bit of the blurring of the annexation and rezoning questions.
Yeah, and I agree. We do need an ordinance going forward. I'm just still a little unclear if it makes a difference in this instance where, they've already limited it to 50 feet. I don't know if we're going to go in and do an ordinance below 50 feet. I doubt we would.
And it may just be the comfort that the ordinance is there and it's not necessarily particularly obstructive for a residential development, but there's a possible commercial component that obviously could have considerably different possibly elevations than maybe what maybe your typical residential home could have.
Anybody answer the question for the attorney?
Well, I don't know. Well, since we really didn't get an answer to the question about whether or not we have to annex property before we can vote on zoning, how in the world can we vote on this tonight?
I just wanted to paint what the county's position would be as far as action.
My question is, Knox Grove Landing, right? We annexed Knox Grove down that way. No, we rezoned it first and then came back a month or so, maybe 2 months later and annexed it. So what is the difference now than 8 months ago or 10 months ago? That's my question. And I'm surprised that as a county representing the county, you didn't come 10 months ago and brought that forward to our attention, but now it is to our attention. I appreciate the information, and there's a lot of things we need to work on. But it just seems strange that it was not talked about 10 months ago, and now it's talked.
What was not on my radar did not become an issue.
But don't the county know everything that's going on? You see our agenda, you know we're rezoning.
The intent is to portray and get things done right in accordance with applicable law.
But
I mean, it sounds like maybe that was done wrong as well.
We sent out notifications. We published public hearing.
Right.
So the county knew 10 months ago, we rezoned, I believe it was 2 properties out that way on Antioch.
That's right.
And the county never came forward and said, hey, city, you're doing something wrong.
I think my understanding typically
you can't rezone and then come back 2 months later or 3 meetings later and annex.
I think typically you guys have done them concurrently, is my understanding.
No, they don't get not all the time. So I'm just curious that
I'm not your council. I'm not your city manager, so I don't.
Yeah,
it's not my job to
I'm
make
not
sure
going to
you
put
guys
you in
do
that
things.
position. Thank you very much. I'm not going to put you in that position to answer that.
Thank
you. Anybody else have a question for the attorney? Thank you, sir. Is anybody else?
No, I was just.
Thank you very much, sir. Anybody else out to the left would like to come and speak? Okay, anybody else in the public would like to come and speak at this time? Sir?
I think you can hear me from here for some way.
That's understood. Yes, sir.
I'm Frank Clark. On the farm that borders this development on the west side, from Corner Side Road and Perry Road, or adjacent to the border of Perry Road. And I'm in favor of the development. I think it will offer quality housing to a broader market segment for the town, for the community, especially recognizing the need for expanded housing options. A bit of concern about the infrastructure, but not that it was true whether it improved or not. I can't speak to the safety aspects or the zoning of the FAA guidelines in the airport. I can only speak as a property owner and a resident who spends a fair amount of time outside. Where you live relative to the flight path or the pattern makes a huge difference in what kind of your experience is of the noise. And my neighbor to the south on Salem Road, you're going to have a different experience than what we have for Greenwood. The airport the training flights for flight hours, I assume that's what they are. They're repetitive patterns of people flying in the area. It happens to be over our property, and you get a pretty good view of the regular activity, and it's entertaining to watch. But as helicopters that fly, they come up from Raleigh, from where Bar Station wanted to fly. If you're not present for it, it's hard to really appreciate the noise level that they generate. And they like to do their training after dark. Before dark, they sort of be until late in the evening when it goes on. And those Apaches or whatever the helicopter types that they're flying on, they generate a lot of noise. And I like being outside to experience the nature, and I'm fortunate enough to have a property to be able to enjoy the country. So I haven't complained. I like to live and let live. And I take the noise as a part of the benefits of having the airport nearby. I think, though, the gentleman's comments include sport folk that spoke about the high levels of the noise and the complaints of residents who experienced that noise over the head at 285 feet or whatever flight pattern are. And that is different than noise level at 1,000 feet or 685. That if those residents who buy those homes and want to experience the benefit of being in the country, and having a community in the country that they can experience with their family and spend time outside, they're going to get quickly aware of the noise that comes along with living there. And I think that whether we're talking about heights and FAA changing their guidelines, I doubt they're going to do that for us or any other municipality in our area. But I think communication and awareness and recognizing that regardless of whether this develops approved or not, as the county grows, the city grows, and especially with this development and not farm dwellings, that they're just in closer proximity to the reality of the person airport there. And be prepared for what kind of response you're going to have for them if you're sitting on board at that time, because I can visualize what the gentleman was saying, that folks are going to complain about, well, I bought this nice house and moved to this community, and I got this noise and I can't enjoy the quality of life that I expected to. And that's not fault on the developer, it's not fault on the city or on the airport necessarily, but I think it does come down to communication and expectations. And to the extent that the developers and the real estate folks that do the selling can be open about that, what people experience, might have fewer complaints and problems down the road. So I've lived there for 50 years off and on, and I haven't seen the amount of flight traffic decrease at all since we've been here. And I think that the benefit greatly from the airport and services there. I've only flown into it one time, and that was 48 years ago. But I was damn glad it was there at the time. And I think that if I was family member was on recipient of the transplant, the organ was made available through the line here, would be pretty grateful that it's there and available at 3 in the morning as well, regardless of that. So I just like that we can hopefully coexist moving forward with the airport, with the development, and with the city and the growth that comes along. And we got other developments that will be coming in front of you. So be aware, be prepared, and participate, and communicate. So you're not going to make everybody happy, but you might limit who they're going to complain to and what they can say.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
At this time, public hearing is closed. Consider approving the Perry Farms development consisting of 527 acres from AR40 to RMUCD. The density level is set at 2.35 acres. The planning board recommend approval of this request. Is there a motion?
Question? Any question?
Is there a motion? Then we go into.
Mr. Mayor, considering what we have heard about rezoning and annexation in conjunction, FAA, I wrote it down, whatever that.
Form 7460.
7460. I'd like to make a motion that we table this until those two factors are cleared up.
So, do we have a motion?
I will second it.
Mr. Lumpkins.
Do we want to give the developer a chance to address some of the concerns that were brought up? I guess we can't be fair.
not sure which ones to address. I feel like we kind of addressed it through the presentation, but this is a conditional zoning. We'd be happy to condition the submittal of the 7460, getting approval of the rezoning. We get approval of rezoning, we turn around and immediately submit the 7460. We don't know how long it's going to take. They say 45, 60. Who knows what's going on in DC right now? It could take a long time to get things done. We would like to be able to move forward and get the rezoning in place, and then we can commit to a certain time frame, however we want to do it within a condition of the zoning case, that we will get it submitted. And so that we can make sure that we're starting that clock and that we're doing everything we need to do so that you're not losing that $9.5 million grant and the other things that are so important to the airport. We know that we have to do it, and it's something we're working towards getting submitted. But we don't see why it would hold up a rezoning because we are not submitting documents to file construction right now. The 7460 says you need to submit it within 45 days of the commencement of construction. We're years away from construction right now. We're just looking for zoning and then getting the approval to start working on our site plans and CDs and building program and all of that. So I think that was probably one of the items. And then, I also wanted to make sure that we're being respectful to Mr. Moreau and his, did I say it right? I'm sorry.
Almost, Moreau.
Sorry. Okay, I tried. And thinking about what you all would like to see in that commercial portion along the front of the property, if that's a condition that the board would like us to commit to, that we would like it to be open space, or we want to restrict uses, anything like that. I want to make sure we're having those dialogues, that we include that as one of the conditions as well. Mr. Lumpkins, was there anything else that you wanted me to address?
No, I think it was just fair to give you guys a chance to address.
And, we are putting a 50-foot height limitation across the entirety of the property. So even if we get to the point at some point where you want to start talking about height limitations related to airport overlays and things that Granville County has, this development is not anticipated to have anything that would get into that height limit. So we'd still be way under that limitation.
My question would be, does it make a difference when you use the term conditional rezoning? I mean, I'm hearing that we have to annex something before we can rezone. That's from the attorney. And we have to, in closed session, get an answer to that question. So if it's wrong, it's wrong. So naming it conditional rezoning, does that make a difference?
May I commit, Mr. Bridges?
Yes.
So I would obviously defer to your city attorney on this. I mean, that's who y'all need to listen to. Typically, in our experience with a conditional rezoning, because we are asking for specific conditions such as the architectural features, and we're outlining those in that narrative, it's not a set zoning. The conditions can be applied to it. And so with our request of a conditional rezoning, if the annexation is a concern with the legality of that, we would look to your city attorney to ask, can the zoning be conditioned based on the approval of the annexation? And so in that case, the zoning is held in limbo until the annexation is approved, and then in which case the zoning is approved at the same time. So that would be a question to your city attorney.
Mrs. Hart, would you like to address any of this?
We need to talk about that in the executive session. It's very complicated.
So the recommendation is to?
You got a motion?
We have a motion to table. We have a second. All right? Mr. Velez. There is a second.
Can I ask a question? If you're tabling, can we be given a date as to when this would be brought back so that and if you're doing that, can we have rezoning, then annexation as a companion thing at the same time. We don't want to hold our client in limbo for a long period of time, because then that will also hold us off, whether we're submitting the 7460, what we're doing, his contractual obligations, all of those things. So I feel like we've checked all the boxes to get us here tonight and have done our due diligence and have talked with all the people that we need to. So I appreciate your all's position as well. I just don't want to have an undetermined amount of time that this is going to be held.
So can we clarify the motion? Are we asking them?
We have a motion to table.
Table until what?
Until we can get the annexation, rezoning, and the FAA. Now, I know you said it's gonna take some time for that, but for the annexation and the rezoning clarified, so that in the future, the county won't come back to us and say, you did this, but you should have done that. That's all I'm asking for tonight.
So we're not asking them that we're not gonna make a decision until the FAA form is decided.
I think I don't think it would be fair to, if they said take that much time, I don't think it would be fair to hold them out to that. But as far as the city, the rezone, right now, the annexation and the rezoning, to me, is something that needs to be clarified and worked out.
Question.
Yeah, because we don't need to.
The secretary is asking.
I'm sorry, the first motion was to table until the annexation and rezoning was cleared up and the Form 7460 is completed. So do you want to make a substitute?
Substitute, not take completed out, but submit it. Let the city know that the form has been submitted. Is that fair enough? Because number one, whether I am here on the board down the road, I do not want the citizens of Oxford to come to a meeting one night and find out y'all got to pay back $980 million because that board made a mistake.
Yeah.
You know,
I think we can, in principle, be fine with that. Just thinking about what's the time frame of when we can get back in front of you. We can have our teams working on getting 7460 submitted and give you, the notification that we're working on that and getting it submitted. But from public notification requirements and things like that, and I guess I'm looking towards the city attorney too, to make sure, can we get on your next agenda and have the companion continue this until the next meeting, have the companion, make sure we've got the rezoning and the annexation on the same agenda, and that way it's clean and you all are acting on both things in one meeting.
So it's 30
that's
days.
my whole
It's
objective.
30 days, which is the next agenda meeting, says that's sufficient.
So nobody's coming back saying, well, they did this, but they didn't tell us to do that. If they did that, the county saying you did. Be concurrent with what we need to do and have done.
So, Mr. Taylor, there's 30 days sufficient time for us to resolve those issues.
It is.
Okay, so now you want to adjust your motion.
I made the correction, didn't I, Sydney?
Okay.
Yeah.
You just want to add until the
30 days.
May,
That'll be fine.
April. I'm
April.
sorry,
April, yeah. April meeting.
So we still have a second, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Any discussion, more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will table for 30 days to get the developer and for the city to resolve some issues we have. Okay, the next city business. Call for public hearing for previously approved conditional rezoning for 134 acres single-family development to modify the ingress-egress location for the April regular board meeting. The staff is recommending approving. Staff recommends calling for public hearing for the April 15 regular board meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion.
No.
This is for rezoning as well.
Same thing.
That's just my question.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Same thing, tape it out until we figure out,
What's this annexed in?
whether that.
This was annexed already.
Is this already?
Say that again,
Yes, it's
Mrs.
already
Mark?
approved. Right.
Okay, all right.
Motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you, sir.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consider adopting a attached ordinance allowing the consumption and sale of alcoholic beverage on city property. Staff recommend adopting the ordinance. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? What?
I do have a
Okay,
question. I apologize.
I'm sorry.
Hesitancy. How is this different than the ordinances we've already passed where people can have alcoholic beverages in the downtown, certain areas of the downtown? How is this different?
The city property.
City property.
Like
For
the
instance, Lake Devon area, the Public Works Building, typical example.
Oh,
There's a city ordinance that forbids it.
Right,
There's actually an ordinance that forbids it currently.
right. So that's the reason to clarify
okay.
that.
All right. That's just, that's all.
Okay, so we go back.
I motioned it.
Motion, any second?
Self-second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consider approving an ordinance to permit the city manager as signatory to final plat approval of City of Oxford. Staff recommends approving the ordinance to permit the city manager as a signatory to final plat approvals for the City of Oxford. Is there a motion?
Question.
Question, man. Can
Go ahead.
Can we get some clarification how this is possible?
State statute allows the Board of Commissioners to designate who can sign plats. So you're authorized by state law, but our ordinance has limited it to where we feel like you need to have an additional signer just in case something happens to the other.
But this is not saying that you're replacing the signature of an engineer.
No, I'm not performing any engineering functions at all. What this would allow to do is if we have the guarantee in place to move forward with something, then I could sign that if I'm satisfied with what's been done and the guarantee's place for anything else that needs to be done.
So for instance, if we have an engineering firm working with us and they done gone through the steps, then it's something that you can sign off at the end.
I'm gonna look at what an engineer tells me, because again, I'm not an engineer, so I'm gonna look at the information that's provided. And if it's in the city's interest not to sign them, we won't sign them. And if it is, we will.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure we got some kind of clarification on the process and the steps of this.
On the road, go ahead, sir.
Yeah. Who signs off on it now?
I'm not city engineer. City engineer, planning board director, city clerk.
So why do we need the city engineer to sign off on it at an earlier time? Different now.
Well, I wasn't there when this ordinance was created, so I don't know about prior to.
Now, I ain't quite hear you. Who do you say sign off on it now?
City engineer, planning board director, or chairman, and city clerk.
Okay, so other people that are not engineers actually sign off on it now, right? Because you said planning board director and chair and the city clerk. Okay, so
let me ask you a question. Under all signatures, whoever planning clerk and city manager, it must be come with a seal of approval and signature by engineer that says it's good to go. That's what I understand. Before any one of the other three, planning director, city manager, and the clerk right now, it must have a signature by a engineer.
We typically operate on getting engineer certifications for various things that are going on throughout a development.
Okay. Any more questions on this?
So this.
I'm just, the only question I have, and of course that may have to be answered in closed session with our attorney, but I want to know, is there liability connected to these signatures? Because right now, the city engineer has to also sign. And it sounds like we're changing it wherein we don't have to have a signature of an engineer. And I'm just questioning liability on the part of the city and/or board members.
If anything is done wrong, it's going to come back to somebody. And it may be me, it could be the engineer, it could be any of them. Again, I'm not going to be performing if I'm the one signing. Engineer, I'm going to be getting data that supports that, yes, you can proceed with that. It did get from someone that's qualified to make it.
So it's clear you're not performing the function of engineering. Yes, your signature is based on an engineer approval.
Not if an engineer doesn't sign.
And that was going to be my question. Is it, are we saying the signature in addition to or in replace of?
Either or.
Either or.
And I piggyback on Commissioner Bridges, the liability is gonna fall on the board because we're gonna be the one authorizing our manager to sign.
Well, what's the difference if the city clerk can sign it now and the planning director can sign it now? What's the difference?
But it's with an engineer. It's engineer's signature along with those other two. And I don't have a problem adding the manager.
The manager.
Is that the case, Cindy? Or, okay.
So our planning director does not sign alone.
Okay.
Nor our secretary. They sign under the engineer. I don't mind Mr. Taylor having that same opportunity, but I don't want Mr. Taylor to be caught out there, because if he get caught out there, we get caught out there, or whoever's sitting on this board get caught out there representing the city of Oxford.
Well, can we make it to where an engineering firm signs off on it?
A firm? You gotta pay that firm.
You got money.
Well, we got some on our payroll already.
If an engineer, I'm not taking over the meeting.
We actually
But
got
I mean,
some on
if an
projects.
engineer has signed off, Mr. Taylor can sign.
In addition to.
Planning director Hard can sign. The secretary can sign, because they are validating signatures.
Yeah.
That's all they're doing is validating. But the seal of approval is the engineer.
Exactly.
That person is validating their reputation, their license, the whole thing.
So again, Mr. Taylor,
I just want to protect our manager.
He's not acting as an engineer. You will sign after the engineer has certified the project or whatever it is satisfactory, meet all requirements.
Makes that work.
Okay.
signatory to final
Plat approval.
So is it the planning director or the clerk, if it has an engineer signature on it, proving it? If there's second signing?
Yeah, we go through a very extensive process of reviewing all these developments. So signature, if it's mine, it's not gonna be affixed without having inspections and everything else met satisfactorily. So,
Yeah, audience, they know they do. You going by somebody telling you to count.
This person.
I would just say that as long as we have a licensed engineer, I don't have a problem with changing the ordinance, but that doesn't indicate that an engineer has to.
So a licensed engineer, that's key.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Burnett.
Certification that has to be signed has two parts to it. They are alternative parts. The first part directly relates to the engineer. The second part can relate to anyone that the board appoints as authorized to sign. And it says the engineer certifies that the work meets their requirements. The second part says, this is what the manager would sign, that he has, to the best of his knowledge, the requirements have been met, or the developer has provided sufficient assurances to enable the project to be done, which is normally in the
bond,
as a bond or a letter of credit. That's the one manager signing. He's not signing it as an engineer. The theory behind this is that he would have all of the inspections done. He would have reports from all engineers available. He would have 100% confidence in the accuracy of the information that's given to him, and that he would require them to post a bond or some other form of financial guarantee that the improvements listed on the map either have been done or they're going to be done. And that's what the certificate says. Now, Cheryl signs it as planning director, and she's required by state law to sign it. The clerk signs it as the clerk because she's required to sign it. The engineer can sign it, and the manager, under the first part of the certification, and probably under the second part of the certification. But the manager can sign if the developer has provided sufficient surety that the improvements have been done or are going to be done. And, you know, we do bonds all the time for that.
So this can be any engineer, even though
Well, it's
don't
gotta
work
be
for the
somebody
city,
working for the
but-
city, so it's gotta be somebody that the city has hired to do the work. Or that somebody is willing to go out there and inspect the work that's been done.
There you go.
So the bond is covering the liability.
guess I'm just trying to get clarification. So is this a way that our own city engineer can have no involvement in the decision?
The city engineer will be involved in the decision because she has expertise that we would certainly hear.
We have a motion? Second. We already had our discussions back and forth, so we go. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Consider adopting an attached resolution to join the NC Water and Wastewater Agency Response Network.
Skip one.
Skip one.
Adopting.
No, we talked about alcohol, right?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, you did not.
You're at 6.4. Go ahead with 6.4.
I'm correct. Thank you. I'm fine. Thank you very much.
Sorry.
Again, consider adopting an attached resolution to join the NC Water and Wastewater Agency Response Network. Staff recommends approving the resolution to join the NC Water and Wastewater Agency Response Network. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Consider adopting an attached resolution for Granville County Animal Control Enforcement within the city limits of Oxford. Staff recommends adopting the resolution for Granville County Animal Control Enforcement within the city limits of Oxford. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
I make a motion that we accept our consent agenda as stated.
Ooh. What? It's me like it. Okay. Consent agenda, consider accepting January 2025 financial report. Consider accepting the February and 3rd and February 11th minutes. Is there a motion?
I made the motion.
Is there a second? Any discussion?
Nuh-uh.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, I was told we're going to closed session.
Before we go into closed session, Mr. Manager, you set the retreat for the 21st and 22nd, correct?
Thursday, the 20th and 21st, and Friday, Thursday and Friday.
Thursday and Friday. I
But
can make Thursday.
But I actually think we could do it all on the 20th.
Okay, because I can make Thursday, but I was going to let the board know I wouldn't be able to make Friday.
Okay, do we want to do our comments now? Or no?
We got to have a break. We got to break.
Okay,
Adjourn. Close.
it's been a long one. Let's take a recess, for 5 minutes recess, and then we get back here.
Adjourn for closed session. I need to take a recess. Adjourn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's do it this way. Let's make it easy. Let's adjourn for closed session. We take a 5 minutes recess, and then we get back.
Can I get a motion?
Can I get a motion on that?
Motion.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Any discussion? No discussion. Motion carries. Why didn't you hit me before?
Why did I hit you? Why didn't I?
You know, we had a big argument.
I tell you, child.
I'm sorry about that. I thought that was the same thing. I'm tired.
You guys are on my age, so you don't need to.